Public Meetings Act. I would like to call this meeting to order. Eric Beasley, are there any sunshine announcements to share with us?
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, notice has been provided to Bergen Records, L. Espolito, as well as posted with the city clerk.
Thank you. Can you please take roll call?
Yes. I see Commissioner Barron, Commissioner Boyle,
Here.
Commissioner Patel,
Here.
Commissioner Shadid,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Yeah. Commissioner Zablicki, Vice Chair Ruhl, and Chair Coyle.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Can we all please stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Iris, do we have any staff that need to be sworn in, or Eric, staff to be sworn in?
Raise your right hand, and do you swear that the testimony and comments that you will make this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. That's enough. And I see Eric Beasley, and I see Thank you.
Okay, Eric, is there any correspondence that you need to share with us?
I do not have any correspondence.
Okay. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is a special meeting in order for us to hear case Z20-043 in reference to 201 Newark Avenue. I have a few announcements just to make, is that going forward, tonight will not be the situation. Meetings will end about 9:45 due to security leaving the building at 10 o'clock, but tonight they will be remaining so we can continue this evening. And our next meeting and meetings going forward will begin at 6 o'clock due to the fact that we have to end by 9:45. So at this time, if we could please present. Whose side are we going to start with, Mr. Vinnie? Who do you think? Mr. Harrington or?
I believe it's Ann's.
Okay.
I just have two witnesses. I think this is some members of the public, and you'll have some cross.
Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Okay.
I'd like to present my first witness, a traffic engineer. It's Benson, and I guess Ben should be here. And then, do you have a laptop that you want to plug in for exhibits? And do you have
Wait, we can't hear you, Ann. Can you get to a microphone?
laptop to plug in for exhibits? And does he have copies of exhibits to hand in?
I don't have any copies, but I have, or
Gabby has copies.
Gabby has copies, and then I have the exhibits on my laptop that I would like to show.
Okay, so you're probably going to be over here.
Hello.
Okay.
And so does the laptop plug in somehow to this thing?
Yeah. Let's see if this works.
This is the airport, isn't it?
Oh, that's LaGuardia.
LaGuardia.
audience?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
December we didn't mark anything, let's check for November. So November was,
They take you like, what, $50 just to get there.
let's go with November.
Okay, are we ready? Are we ready?
You set? Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Okay. Exhibit has been marked 05.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Simoff, you also have, I believe, copies. Okay.
Swear that the testimony you will provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Full name, please, and the last name.
Benjamin Simoff, Benjamin Simoff.
Thank you. Okay, this is one.
Okay, and I believe you have copies of your CV, right?
Yeah, I have a few
Available.
copies here.
Can I have a copy for Mr. Harrington? Thank you very much. Just need two. And for Eric. So, Mr. Simoff, I'm just gonna, as we discussed, walk you through your qualifications. Could you tell me?
I don't
Is
know
this
if your
on?
mic is on. Okay.
Okay, that's on. Did we turn off the
Yeah, my computer
turn
went to
off
sleep.
we turned off the feed
Yeah, let's see if it comes back.
somehow?
Apologies.
What I'd like you to do is just tell the board about your education, your licensure, and just highlights of your work experience.
Okay.
And then we're going to get into why it is specifically you who are standing here tonight. That'll be my next question.
Okay. So I graduated from Columbia University in the city of New York with a bachelor's in science in civil engineering. And then I subsequently went to New York University where I got a master's in business administration. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, and I have extensive work experience with the RFBA Group NV5 Incorporated in New York City, as well as with Simoff Engineering in New Jersey.
And I offer him, based on that, as expert. If you'd like to hear about towns that he's worked in, I'm happy to have him recite those. Also, they're on the CV that I provided to Mr. Harrington.
Okay.
Seen that CD, but Mr. Simone, is it?
Simoff.
So you've testified before as an expert,
Yes, I've been qualified as an expert before.
and your license is still current?
Yes, it is.
Right, we'll accept you. Go forward.
Okay. And so, as the board heard, he mentioned Simoff Engineering. His father, Hal Simoff, is someone that I've worked with. And I reached out to Hal, and then your dad said,
Well, so yeah, and my father told Anne that in the words of my father, my son lives a few blocks away from the site that you're talking about, and he's still an engineer, even though that's not necessarily his day job. I'm going to give him a call and see if he'll take the job.
and so could you tell the board where you live? And their street address may be enough. You guys may know it. I wouldn't be able to place it.
I live at 120 York Street, so the corner of York and Warren, in Councilman Solomon's district.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So right there, right next to St. Peter's Prep.
And can you tell us, were you familiar in general with the outlines of this project, this application, before becoming involved as a professional?
Yeah, I actually saw the rendering in the Jersey Journal. I was a print subscriber until very recently, as the paper is no longer in circulation. But I saw it in the paper, and I thought that it looked really nice, and I was actually for it, just seeing the rendering.
And I think we all agree it's, a great project. The legal question, as I know you understand, is the location, highly location specific. Can you tell us just in general your impression as you started to look into some of the facts related to this application, and specifically given your line of expertise, what those facts were?
Yeah, so when you asked me to take a closer look at this application, right? Because before I was just familiar with it, just seeing it in the paper, and generally being pro. I'm typically I'm for exciting things happening in Jersey City, but you asked me to take a closer look at the application, and once I took a deeper look, I thought that there were some real problems with the site plan and the traffic circulation specifically. And I think that the applicant actually didn't perform a full analysis that would incorporate all of the factors required to do a complete understanding of what the traffic impact would be. And I don't think that they could adequately say that there would be no significant impact associated with this project.
And could you now describe what those factors are and why they lead you to your conclusion?
Yeah, so there were a few factors that I saw that stand out to me. There's the data collection, there's the actual traffic analysis, and then there's the civil site plan, right? Just looking at the site plan, and so we can just go through all the points that I found. And so, in the plan and also in the applicant's testimony, they they devote a lot of time to talking about pedestrian flows, and it's a very busy pedestrian area, as well as extensive public transportation access. But the traffic analysis and the data collection didn't incorporate pedestrians, and they didn't break out buses in the analysis, right? So typically for locations like this, you would include pedestrian counts at the intersections, as well as bus blockages, right? We all know that when a bus stops at an intersection, right, you block the traffic flow. And when pedestrians cross an intersection, they also block the traffic flow, right? So those factors weren't incorporated into the analysis.
And so those factors have to do with queuing, rapidity with which the intersection will clear, any.
Yeah, so the level of service that was in the report won't accurately reflect all of these additional factors, right? So the queuing would be worse, the level of service would be worse, and just the general functioning of the intersections around there would not be, it wouldn't be a holistic view of that, of the
Can you
operation of the
talk a
intersection.
little bit about how the intersections are interdependent?
Well, so that's another point that I noticed in the analysis, is that each of the intersections was analyzed independently, right? Like as an independent island, basically, right? And so anybody who's been down to that down to the site will see, right? Like, so this, if you look at the exhibit here, we're looking at Maxwell Street facing north. And you see that, right, that as traffic is queuing at Newark Avenue, the queue backs up, like the cars back up into into Maxwell Street. But the analysis didn't incorporate these spillover queues into the Maxwell Street analysis. So in the report, it says Maxwell Street operates at a level of service A, right, which means free-flowing traffic, when we can see from the image, from the exhibit, that that's not true.
And would you say the same if Maxwell Street itself were more heavily trafficked? Would that cause queuing on Jersey Avenue southbound
Potentially, absolutely.
and back up again towards the Newark intersection?
Absolutely. Yeah, there would be queues. You can see in one of the other exhibits that I have there, right? The southbound queues. This is facing southbound at at Maxwell Street. Right, you can see that the queues are extensive and are not incorporated into the analysis at all.
I know you're going to talk about bus turning radius and the possibility that the stop bar on Jersey Avenue northbound would have to be moved and that might impact Columbus Avenue. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the aspects that I noticed here in the site plan is, I'm going to pull up, right, if we can see here, this is the I believe it's the circulation plan from the applicant's plan set that was submitted, and I'll get to the turning template that's on here in just a second.
Can I ask you for a couple of things? Yes. Would you describe for the board if there's anything on here that you added? Oh, please describe that.
Oh, absolutely. So if you look at the dark black lines at the center of Newark Avenue and Jersey Avenue, these are the yellow lines. So the center lines are the yellow lines that were taken from the aerial that you find on online. And you can see that the stop bar at Jersey Avenue in Newark, that it looks vertical to on your screen, is the stop bar that was taken from the thick white line, the stop bar that was taken from the aerial as well.
And so I don't know if you have an illustration about the point about the bus turn, or if you want to describe it off of this illustration.
Well, I have in the applicant's submission. There's the bus turning. I don't have it handy here, but you'll be able to see that as the buses turn from Newark Avenue onto Jersey, they have to go across that center line there on Jersey Avenue, and the bus would be swinging into oncoming traffic. And so as a result, the stop bar would have to be moved back on Jersey Avenue, moved southbound towards Columbus. And as we saw before, that there's already extensive queuing on Jersey Avenue northbound. And that by pushing the stop bar south a few vehicles, it would be about 2 or 3 vehicles, that the queuing would be exacerbated and would back up into Columbus Avenue or Columbus Boulevard even more frequently than it already is.
Is there anything else you'd like to say specifically about Newark and Jersey before we move into Maxwell?
If you look, and you can see this in this plan, one of the things, sorry about that. One of the things that makes me a little uncomfortable with this site plan is that it's indicated that the existing signals are to remain. Let's see if it comes back. Apologies. If you look at the circulation plan, let's see.
I can see the 2 little handicap ramps, I think they are, right at the corner there. Yes, you're showing one with
Yes.
your arrow. And then there's 2 little arrowheads that I think are pointing to those signal poles.
Right. So it says signal pole and ped signal to remain, right? And it's remaining at the existing location. And even though the sidewalk is being expanded into Jersey Avenue and into Newark Avenue, the signal posts are to remain, and it makes me uncomfortable seeing it so far from the curb.
And can you say why it makes you uncomfortable?
Because typically, according to the manual uniform traffic control devices, the signal poles need to be within the line of sight of the drivers and the pedestrians that are using those poles. And just looking at it from my perspective, I'm not sure if that's necessarily true.
That someone traveling, for example, east on Newark or north on Jersey might not see the signal because it's out of the line of where they normally would be expected to
Exactly.
see
It would be out of the line of sight.
If there's anything else about that general intersection, I'm asking you to further explain it, and otherwise we'll move on to Maxwell.
Yeah, I think that's all for the actual site plan on Newark and Jersey.
So you've familiarized yourself with the transcripts and the videos of the record up till now.
Yes.
Correct. And so the truck turning radius that's shown on here, the bus turning is not, we have to imagine it, but the truck turning that was drawn by the applicant. Am I correct about that?
The truck turning, there's a little bit of the truck turning that was drawn by the applicant. So this drawing that I have here is it's an augmentation of what the applicant submitted.
Okay.
Right.
Can you describe.
Right. So if you look in the plan set that the applicant submitted, they demonstrate how a box truck can pull into the driveway off of Maxwell Street, but they don't show how a box truck can pull from Jersey Avenue into Maxwell Street. And I was curious to see what that looked like, if that was possible. And it seems that it is. However, the box truck would be mounting. You see this outline here? This would be like the sweep here. So the box truck would be mounting the curb and going over the pedestrian ramp and onto Maxwell Street.
Are you familiar with the testimony about what I understand from Mr. Harrington is staff's request that there be bollards because it is proposed that the pavement on Maxwell will have the same level as the sidewalks.
Yes, I've seen the testimony that it would be a complete street.
And you're familiar that there was some testimony from the applicant's traffic engineer that they might be able to do bollards closer towards Jersey, but they would not be able to put them nearer to the entrance to the garage because it would impede the turning. Are you familiar with that testimony?
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
And does your illustration here show that they really aren't going to be able to put bollards
I,
over near the intersection, the pedestrian intersection with Jersey also?
I don't see how bollards could be placed in there and while maintaining appropriate width right away for the trucks to make deliveries.
Can you also talk a little bit about the applicant's proposal that service vehicles trucks, S30 trucks or
SU30, yeah.
SU30, will turn frontways into the service bay there, but then back towards Jersey?
Yeah, I saw in the testimony it said that there would be a valet employee who would help the truck back out, which is a very novel method of ensuring that deliveries can come and go.
Is it something that valet drivers normally do?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Do you think this creates a potentially dangerous situation for the pedestrians?
Absolutely, because if you notice, the vehicle, the driver will not be able to see back into Maxwell Street. They cannot see behind them. They would be backing up blindly. And I think that goes against the very nature of a complete street. Right? A complete street is supposed to be a haven for pedestrians and occasional use of vehicles, but it shouldn't be, right? We all know what, like the Newark Avenue pedestrian plaza, how pleasant that can be to walk around, right? But this is not, or at Barrow Street, like Barrow and Newark, right? You're going, I believe it's north on Barrow, and you can get, you sometimes mingle with traffic, but you don't really worry about that, right, as a pedestrian. But if I was a pedestrian walking on Maxwell Street, that would be certainly a concern of mine.
Do you have, and I apologize, I can't remember if it was you or Mr. Steck, any concerns about the handicap space, the turntable, the maneuvering of essentially the passenger cars within the proposed garage?
I don't think that was me, but it is extraordinarily tight.
Okay, and Peter is raising his hand. So, and we have, so that's your professional view, and then Peter will elaborate on that. You did also raise an issue with the drop-off and pickup of the proposed valet parking. We've already talked about how it really only is suitable for one car at a time, but you raised another issue with it that I'd like you to let the board know what you thought.
Yeah, so as you can see, right, when a truck is making a delivery, right, the valet can't come and go, right? So that, especially if I guess there's 2 points that I want to make here. If the applicant is suggesting that there will be events happening and there will be peaks, right? Like everyone is leaving an event at one time or arriving at one time, it's going to be extra. And if there happens to be a delivery, I mean, I don't understand how that would work. And then secondly, if as hotel guests would be leaving and getting their cars, the valet, in order to bring the car around the front to Newark Avenue, would have to, I'm going to do this from memory, so would have to go on Maxwell Street, left on Coles.
Which is because Coles is a one-way street.
Coles is a one-way street. Right on Columbus, I believe, right on...
Right or left?
Yeah, I think the route to get back to the south curb on Newark Avenue is extraordinarily long. I believe I think it would be on Monmouth and then turn right on First off of Monmouth and then back onto Newark. It's a long trip.
And is that the problem? Because if the valet drove on Maxwell, turned left on Cole, turned left again on Columbus, turned left again on Jersey, turned left again on Newark, basically circling the block, they'd be on the wrong side of Newark.
Yeah, they would be on the far side of Newark, right? So to bring the car to the hotel curb, right, that's when they have to go all the way over to Monmouth or some other route. That's it's quite far.
And there's something about Monmouth also that I wanted you to let the board.
Anybody who's driven in this neighborhood on Sunday afternoons knows that Monmouth is absolutely gridlocked for tunnel traffic. or on weekday afternoons, evenings going into the city. So it's not an ideal route for valets to be returning cars to guests.
So you have, and again, you've given your address. I know you pointed out to me the Marriott parking garage, which I believe, and Mr. Harrington will correct me if I'm wrong, is where the applicant proposes to shuttle event parkers from. Do you have thoughts as to whether that would or would not appropriately resolve any concerns about events overcrowding the neighborhood with people looking to park, with valets queuing to park cars?
It may alleviate, but without seeing an actual parking analysis done of the Marriott, I don't know what the occupancy is like on a regular basis. It's hard to say that the parking there could be an adequate overflow.
Do you know of any provisions that the applicant has made to ensure that he would always be able to have access to those Marriott spaces?
No, I don't. I haven't seen a shared parking agreement or anything like that.
Would you need to see something like that in order to say that yes, that would resolve the overflow problem that everyone, including the applicant himself, has candidly acknowledged events would cause?
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned a fire hydrant. Can you mention
Oh,
that?
not yet. So one of the things that, if you notice here, right, as the truck is turning onto Maxwell Street, right, where it's driving over the corner of the curb here, like pretty significantly so. And one thing that I noticed that's missing from the survey is, let's see. Sorry. You see that? So there's a fire hydrant that's not on the survey. And so in order for a truck to make that turn onto Maxwell Street, they would have to they would have to drive over the fire hydrant, or the fire hydrant would have to be relocated in order to accommodate that movement.
City Bike Station.
Yeah, so the City Bike Station, it says that it's to remain, but the crowding on the sidewalk would be significant.
I believe the testimony is that it might be slightly shifted so as to create a choke point that's only 5 feet between the proposed seating area within the city-owned sidewalk easement and the bike station. Would they have to shrink the bike station? Would they be able to leave the bike station? Is that something?
I mean, 5 feet is the ADA minimum, right?
And could you just said the ADA minimum?
The American Disabilities Act requires a 5-foot clear way for people traveling on the sidewalk to accommodate people with disabilities.
And is there anything else about the pedestrian circulation here that the narrowing of the sidewalk, I know it's wider in one area, but that the narrowing of the sidewalk could impede in terms of safety?
And I think that at this corner here at Maxwell and Jersey is where the sight distances would be very important to take into account for these pedestrians, right? As they narrow here at the corner, right? If there's trucks backing out of Maxwell or there's trucks turning from Jersey onto Maxwell, that they should be taken into consideration.
Okay. And so I'd just like you to sum up your conclusions for the board on this.
Yeah, so as I said before, when I first saw the plan for the Albion, I was excited about it. But then as I took a closer look, there's some real problems here with the analysis, right? That there's no pedestrian or bus analysis in the applicant's traffic analysis. And then also the analysis is lacking in that it didn't take into account the fact that Newark and Maxwell Streets are very close together on Jersey Avenue, and they need to be analyzed together as a unit, as a system, and they weren't. So the full effects of the proposed development weren't taken into consideration in the analysis. Then there's also the bus turning from Newark Avenue onto Jersey would require changes in the striping that would in the lines drawn on the road, and that would also adversely affect the the traffic operation at this intersection. Then there's the issues with Maxwell Street with the narrow clearance and the inability of a driver who's making a delivery on Maxwell Street to pull in and out without serious safety considerations for pedestrians that are also using Maxwell Street. And then also the turning action from Jersey Avenue onto Maxwell Street, how that the truck would necessarily have to mount the sidewalk, and then that's something that hasn't been taken into consideration, as well as the fire hydrant that's missing from the survey.
Okay,
And
thank
then,
you.
and then also the traffic signals to remain at the intersection of the southwest corner of Newark and Jersey are quite far away from the curb, and I think there needs to be additional analysis done to ensure that those signals are still in the line of sight for drivers and pedestrians at that intersection.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got nothing further at this time. It'll be up to Mr. Harrington. Might have some redirect.
Mr. Harrington?
Do you want to do it now, or do you want to wait for the planner?
It's up to you,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Harrington.
Right, if you'd like to, right now, or?
Examine now, or?
Okay, Mr. Simoff, how you doing tonight?
Hello.
So, just have a few questions here. And just to be clear, you were, from what I understand, you were before the project until you were against it, right? And did that happen after you were retained?
It happened
project?
after I was asked to take a closer look.
Right, after you were retained.
No, that's not what he said.
Okay, so,
Excuse me, I apologize. You just mischaracterized what he said. I know it wasn't intentional, but
Ann, let him finish, please.
Okay.
Just sit down,
understood.
okay?
We can make their own conclusions. You talked about the buses and issues with the buses on Newark Avenue.
Can you speak into the mic?
Is it not working now?
It's on.
Hello? So you spoke about the buses along Newark Avenue. Is there going to be an increase in buses that we don't know about?
I'm not sure if New Jersey Transit plans to increase the bus frequency.
Right, but this project is not going to change any condition with buses going up and down Newark Avenue, correct?
No, but the analysis didn't incorporate an accurate representation of the existing conditions.
Okay. And you didn't do any independent reporter analysis, correct? Like there's no report. that
I have
I'm
not written
seeing.
a report for this, no.
Okay. And you spoke about issues you had with the stop bar on Jersey Avenue. Is in your experience as a traffic engineer, is that something? If it were an issue, is that something that the city engineers and traffic engineers would address?
In my experience, if there's a if there's a site plan that requires a variance, then typically that variance would also include a proposed striping plan for the intersection. Or if they were making changes to the curb, that they would also include a striping plan.
You're aware that these plans that are before the board tonight were sent to the Jersey City engineers and the Jersey City traffic engineers? Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of that, yes.
Okay. And you're aware that a comment letter was issued on behalf of the Jersey City Traffic Department and the Jersey City engineers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then I guess you're aware that there were no comments from the Jersey City Traffic or Engineering Department with regard to those issues. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let me ask you about the signal that you have concerns with. I guess, do you have any experience in designing traffic signals?
Yes.
Okay, in New Jersey?
Yes.
Okay. So that traffic signal that you speak of, does that face north-south or east-west?
I believe it's a signal arm that faces north-south, I believe. We can look at the exhibit if you'd like.
Right. So if you're driving down Newark Avenue, you're not going to be looking at that signal because it faces north-south, correct?
But there's also the pedestrians that need to be considered.
But is it correct?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. So the location of that signal, if you're going the other way, you're going to be able to see it clearly, right?
If you're traveling on Jersey Avenue, likely, yes.
Yes. Okay. And again, is that something that, in your experience, is covered by the municipal engineering department if they see an issue?
Yeah, if they review a plan and find that something needs to be changed, they'll typically make a comment.
Right. It's not typically a developer that's going to move traffic signals independently, correct?
It usually would be concurrent with the change in curbs.
Okay. And let me see. You said you have an issue with the backing up into Maxwell, and if could you tell me again why that's an issue if the truck is going to back up into Maxwell to leave?
I think if they're blindly backing up onto a complete street, and especially one where there's a significant amount of pedestrian activity, it's an unsafe situation. It's an unsafe arrangement.
Okay, and are you aware that the plan of operation is to have the valet operators go into Maxwell Street and make sure that it's clear to back up?
Yeah, I mentioned that in my testimony.
Okay. And are you aware of the Saffron garage?
I'm aware that it's next door, yes.
Okay, and are you aware if they have deliveries within the Saffron garage for the commercial spaces?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, are you aware if they bring, when people move in and move out, are you aware if trucks move into, turn into that garage?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So is it safe to say you're not aware of where the commercial spaces in the Saffron receive their deliveries?
I don't know if they're on Newark or if they're on Maxwell, no.
Okay. And you talk about the drop off on Newark Avenue, that it's a long route to get back to the hotel. That's your analysis, right?
Yes.
Okay. Why is that an issue?
You're adding additional traffic onto the adjacent streets
Well, if it's
that hasn't been adequately incorporated into the analysis.
it's not an additional traffic. It's the same car. It's just taking longer to get there, right?
You're still going through more intersections.
But it doesn't add any additional vehicle, correct?
The same car will be driving on the street for longer.
Okay. And just with regard to you touched upon the garage at you referred to it, I believe, as the Marriott garage. I refer to as 50 Columbus. Are we talking about the same garage?
That's right.
Okay. And you is it your understanding that's a public garage?
I don't know if it's open for the public or just for Marriott customers.
So you live a few blocks away,
I do.
haven't seen no signs that for parking there for the public?
Is that for 50 Columbus or is that the one in front of 70, between 70 and 90?
Well, maybe the question is, it's fair to say you don't know if it's a public garage or not.
I know the garage above the base gym is public. If that's the same Marriott that the applicant suggests parking their overflow in, then that is a public garage.
Okay, because
So because 50, 70, and 90 are all one like bulk unit, basically, right? They're all one landlord. They're all connected together on the inside.
right, and that garage services all of those buildings, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, but as a public garage, anyone can park there.
Yes, that's right.
So you could park there and you could have a hotel shuttle pick you up. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and quite honestly, you don't even need an agreement to do that with the hotel, correct?
No.
I think that's all the questions I have for Mr. Simoff, but I don't know if I would like to bring Mr. Seckler up in rebuttal to maybe address some of the questions or some of the points, if that's okay? Or would you want to wait?
Right.
Ann finishes her,
Oh, her redirect, right.
not only her redirect, but her case.
Okay, that's fine.
Put it on yours.
Understood.
Rebuttal.
Okay. Ann?
Yeah, I just have one more question for you on redirect. As for the public hotel, I understand you're not an attorney, correct?
No, I'm not. Just married to one.
I know. Are you experienced with how parking garages that were part of redevelopment plans are constrained in terms of allocating other commercial users to their public spaces?
Absolutely. I've done many projects where even though it's a public lot, there's explicit agreements about shared parking. Right, so typically, like churches, right, that will share parking with restaurants because they have different peak hours, right? That's typically like, and they expressly put it that the patrons of each establishment are permitted to use the parking lot of the other, right? And that's usually explicitly written down and then filed with the town. I did so in Westport, Connecticut, for example.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all I have for the moment. I don't know if any of the members of the board want to ask a question.
We'll hold our questions till the end, okay?
Great, thank you.
Let's just get the attorneys.
Two things. The cap lot is a defined term in the ordinance. Number two, the entertainment space is a little under 4,000 square feet, so I don't know how you get it's equal to the
No, it's all, if you look at that, just, if it's already, they already admitted in the testimony, they already admitted it's 60% of the area is there.
Okay,
You were not looking at the right, so it's fine. Oh, that's fine. I'm going to swap his words. If you have, do you have any written exhibits? Put them out for me.
So do you activate my screen?
Yes, but it hasn't popped up yet.
Okay.
Can you just double check, see if it's fully inserted, please?
Okay, let's try that again. I invite you to.
This dongle is mine.
My name is Peter Steck, S-T-E-C-K, 80 Maplewood Avenue, Maplewood, New Jersey.
Okay, thank you very much. And did we and you swore Mr. Simoff, right, while I was talking to Mr. Yeah, okay. Are you guys familiar with Mr. Steck? Can you accept him without going through all of his, okay.
My license is still in effect.
Okay, so this is, Peter doesn't need introduction or leading from me. He gave me his outline. He does need a question. And I would like to say, could you please describe the property, your understanding of the application, and what you've been asked to analyze?
My client is the Saffron, the building next door. Part of my preparation, I read the transcripts of the prior hearings. I was here during Mr. Seckler's testimony. I reviewed your zoning ordinance, master plan, and the land uses in the surrounding area. I have an exhibit that I'll put up, and I'll first just describe what it is, and then when I testify, I'll go through it in a little more detail. Let's see. So this is an 11-page exhibit. It was prepared by me, and it's dated February 27th today. And I'll just briefly run through it. On the upper right-hand corner, I have P1 through P11. So the first one is an aerial photograph and the portion of the zoning map. The second one are photographs that were taken by me on August 13th of last year, and I believe they accurately depict the existing conditions. The next photograph are additional photographs taken by me on August 13th of the Saffron building and the view from the top of that building. The next one is a composite of a view plan prepared by the applicant's architect, as well as a panorama that I took on the lower level, reproducing, at least in a panorama viewpoint, what will be blocked from the rooftop. The fifth one is a rendition of the building where I show what is being proposed versus what is allowed in the ordinance. The next one has a similar view with a concentration on the relationship of the new building to the Saffron building. I then did a study of building heights in the immediate area. The next page, there was a lot of discussion about the redevelopment plan that's across Jersey Avenue, and I wanted to go into that to tell you, remind you what is permitted in that plan. 9 is a broader view of that redevelopment area that is on the other side of Jersey Avenue. I have a portion of your master plan on P10, the 10th page. And finally, I have a rendition of where the NC1 zone is, as well as the lot pattern. So let me back up. The best one, I guess, to keep here is maybe P5 for the moment. I know the board is familiar with this, maybe more familiar than it wants to be, but I want to lay some foundation for my testimony. This is a lot that has 3 frontages. It's a little over 13,000 square feet. It has a vacant Capital One Bank building with a drive-through in the rear that has been closed for a period of time. So that curb cut on Newark isn't used, the drive-through isn't used, it's fenced off. This is not designated as a historic building in Jersey City. It's not designated as historic by the state of New Jersey, and the NJDEP website does not indicate that it's eligible for designation as a historic building. You are familiar with the application, but I want to recast it as I look at it. As you know, there is a restaurant component of this building on the, I guess I'll call it the elevated ground floor with 180 seats. As you know, the applicant wants to extend the building onto the public sidewalk. That's permanent construction. This is not putting out tables in good weather. The applicant wants to construct part of the building on public property. The applicant talks about the building as having a nice look, a historic look. They happen to be saving one of the windows. The others are all being altered. As I scale the plans, the distance between the deck for the restaurant and the relocated city bike area is only about 5 feet. So it's a fairly narrow area. And what's kind of uncomfortable is that if you can picture this, people are going to be sitting on this deck eating outside, and pedestrians are going to look right at their knees as you're walking down. So it's not like they're at the same level of pedestrians. They're elevated, so you get to look at, what their belts are or whatever. This is a hotel with 72 rooms, but one component of this is an entertainment space. It's on at least 2 floors. If you recall, there's going to be a theater, there's going to be assembly areas. So this is, and they can operate independent of the hotel. So there are really 3 uses here. There's a restaurant, there's a hotel, and then there's a substantial entertainment component of this. The applicant is proposing 39 parking spaces in a very contorted arrangement. As indicated earlier, there is an entrance door on Maxwell, and as you know, Maxwell is very narrow. The pavement width is about 10.5 feet. And in the Saffron building, there's an exit, there's a door there, but you go in and you can turn around and you can leave going frontwards. In the proposed building, and by the way, the Saffron loads on Newark Avenue. They don't load in the garage. This building, the applicant is saying, well, we don't have a designated loading space, but the trucks will move in. And the answer is they have to back out onto Maxwell, which is a narrow width of right-of-way and a narrow pavement area. If you look at the plans and the handicap spaces, one is seems to be on the turntable that also brings you down to a lower level. So I don't know how you reserve a moving handicap spot. I don't know if that complies with the law. The applicant is, extending the curb cut at the corner of Newark Avenue and Jersey Avenue. And that's even though maybe the number of buses isn't going to change, but the track that the buses have to take will change because there's an expanded radius, and as indicated by Mr. Simoff, that bus has to cross the yellow line in the middle to get around. Not shown on the plans is where you're going to exhaust this parking garage, because it's an enclosed garage, so you got to aerate it. And the plans don't show where you're going to blow that pollution from the cars. But it's mandated in an enclosed garage to have a fan, and also obviously for the kitchen equipment. It's not quite clear where they're going to do that. As you know, this plan had a couple renditions. It started out 8 stories, and then they decided to manipulate the shape. So it's a 9-story building, but these stories are taller than a residential story. So this building is proposed at 9 stories, not including the penthouse. And it's just a fraction of an inch under 120 feet. So it's a very tall building. It is close to all the property lines and in fact encroaches on the public right-of-way on Jersey Avenue. And again, this is not, putting out some tables and umbrellas. This is permanent construction, as if the applicant owned the public property. I don't know that Jersey City is interested in selling the public property. And if you read your franchise ordinance, it wasn't intended for permanent construction the way I read it. Part of my analysis was to look at the surrounding area, and Mr. Seckler characterized the area, and he characterized it in a way that said across the street is a 8-story building with some 83 whatever feet in height, and I'll show you that that's incorrect. He mischaracterized the area, in my opinion, mischaracterized the number of stories in the area. He talked about the lot pattern. If you remember, there was a study about the median lot size, because one of the big points he said was that this is a bigger than minimum lot size, and that size plus that size plus its location, he says, makes it particularly suited for a hotel use. Part of my analysis was looking at the master plan. Your master plan recommended the current zoning, and it did recommend a change to one of the NC1 zones, but that was further to the west. So your master plan said no changes proposed for this NC1 zone. It's interesting that if you read your master plan and talk about the neighborhood commercial districts, from a planning point of view, they divided into 3 categories. There was an NCS, small-scale neighborhood. There was an NCM, medium-scale neighborhood. And then there was an NCL, large-scale neighborhood. This is in the small-scale neighborhood. And as you remember, the applicant says, oh, well, keep in mind that the NC2 and the NC3 zones allow hotels. Now, first of all, they don't allow hotels, even though they allow hotels, they don't allow ones as tall as this building, 120 feet. But your master plan says that 3 scales of NC districts are proposed, each tailored to a different context. That means that the planning board said, yeah, we're having 3 different neighborhood commercial zones, but you can't pretend you're in another zone. We've specifically designed those zones for the context of the neighborhood. And here's what it says. It says, NCS, small-scale neighborhood centers, 5 stories, required mixed use, apartments over ground floor retail. NCS may be appropriate, and they name certain areas. The other NC zones allow 6 to 8 stories and 8 to 12 stories. So pointing to these other zones is not helpful at all, because they have a different context. They have different standards, different recommendations in the master plan. This building is tall. It's over, while it's 9 stories instead of 5, it's 1.8 times the maximum. If this were what you would expect otherwise, let's say residential over retail, you would have a height limit of 55 feet. And so this is over 2.18 times, this is twice as tall
as this zone was intended to be. And on the diagram here, P5, I've shown in a blue line 55 feet. So that's the maximum height that if you had residential over retail, and as you know, the market is pretty strong for retail. If you had office uses over retail, which I would think is unlikely in today's market, you could go up to 64 feet. But this building has a lot of stories and a lot of linear footage that greatly exceeds the maximum that's permitted. Let me, let's see. I want to mention a couple things that Mr. Seckler had, and I know the record will show exactly what he said. But he said that this is a large lot, the second largest lot in his analysis area. It's located at a focal point, because that's at the end of the pedestrian area on Newark Avenue. He said that the size and its location is important because it supports the 9 stories. He said that no parking was required. Now, if you read your ordinance, it says that where you have an existing building that you have adaptive reuse and you're adding on that building, and on to me means you're putting something on the roof. You're going up higher. That's not, while the applicant is going above this building, the other half of it is all new construction, and I don't think that's exempt from parking the way I read your ordinance. The applicant spent a lot of time on the shadow pattern and admitted that it will produce more shadow than exists today. Didn't spend a lot of time on how the view from the top of the saffron would be blocked. He said in advanced purposes of the municipal land use law, A, G, I, and J. A talks about promoting the public welfare, and then he said, oh, look, we're going to have an entertainment area, we're going to invite guests in from the neighborhood. That, in my opinion, it's nice, but does it justify a building twice the height and a use that is prohibited from the zone? He talked about having sufficient space in an appropriate location. I don't know how you can say there's sufficient space when he's building on the public property with part of the restaurant. He's violating the rear yard setback, and he's bumping up too tall. That's not sufficient space for this use. Talks about promoting a desirable visual environment, and it's a new building. To me, it's a little bit in your face. It's very flashy, wants to get attention. That's a matter of public taste. But when you have a building that's this tall, taller than anything in the area, in my opinion, it doesn't promote aesthetics. He says, Mr. Seckler said, I recognize that this is not a historic site. And then he says, oh, but this advances the municipal land use law of purpose of promoting historic conservation, historic preservation. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't say it's not historic and then say, oh, it's advancing that purpose. I did, as part of the record, did review the staff memorandum that described in general the variances that were needed. I just want to footnote that the memorandum is dated July 30th of 2024. I don't think there's been an update. But that was before all of the testimony that was presented. So that was, I guess, a view prior to the application going forward, prior to witnesses, prior to me making comments. Let me run through my exhibit a little more in detail to show what I think it emphasizes. So I'll go back to P1. So on the left-hand side, you have a view of the subject property. And again, this area is a large built-up area. It's solidly within the C1 zone. And as you can see in yellow, there's an R3 zone that would allow 8 stories. There aren't really 8-story buildings there because you need a certain minimum lot size to go up to 8 stories. But Mr. Seckler spent a lot of time talking about the redevelopment area to the east. And that's a redevelopment area in blue, dark blue, 59. The P2 shows you the character of the building, and there's a nice wide sidewalk in the front. And again, the applicant is building up at an upper level, so you get to see what socks people are eating with, or what, you know, it's an uncomfortable height that they're going to be doing. This is a permanent structure. This is not something that you take down in the wintertime. This is a formal part of the building. I don't know how you get under your ordinance a franchise for something that permanently takes the public property. That's kind of, I'll leave it up to the applicant to explain how you can do that. But this is a nice open area. As you know, it's a very heavy area. It's a very congested area. Mr. Seckler says it's a congested area. And it's a combination of cars that back up, pedestrians, and a very substandard Maxwell. Again, pavement is only 10.5 feet wide. And the applicant says, well, we're going to pick it up and make the cartway the same level as the sidewalk. And their explanation is this is great for pedestrians. In my opinion, it does the opposite. You know, normally when you want to encourage pedestrian use and rights-of-way, you put up bollards, you put up curbs, because you want to separate cars from people. This is just the opposite. This means that this whole width is going to be a cartway, and a pedestrian doesn't know where to walk and where not to walk. The next view, so on P3, I'm standing on the roof and looking toward the rest of Jersey City and toward the east. And as you can see, this building is a 4-story over retail building on the lower left-hand side. And again, the deliveries are done on the Newark Avenue side of the building. And the current view, without being a panoramic view, is on the lower right-hand side. So what I did on the upper side of P4 is I used the applicant's photo. Now you can tell the applicant, you know, the lines on the pavers on the roof are straight lines, and you can tell the applicant kind of manipulated the photograph to have it more confined in the middle. I did the opposite. I swung my camera as a panorama, and what I did is, in those red lines, is I reproduced on the east view what is going to be blocked by this proposed building. And it is a substantial portion of the view. And if you recall the testimony of our real estate expert, when they show units on this property, they take them up to the roof because it's a great view. It ain't going to be a great view if you allow this building to be built. Again, P5 shows you from Newark Avenue the view of the building. And again, the market is more, as you know, for residential than for offices, so there would be a maximum 55-foot height. The applicant is going to 120 feet and a total of 9 stories. The next slide, P6, and again, these are renderings that the applicant's architect presented, but I wanted to emphasize what the magnitude of the variance is, at least in terms of height. And this height isn't tucked into the middle of the block. This is right in your face, a few feet back from the front facade on Jersey, but essentially a very large building. And I drew in a blue line the maximum height limit from a building that you would expect, residential over retail. Now, on P7, on the left-hand side, I superimpose the zoning lines on an aerial map, and I listed the number of stories. And again, the applicant is proposing I'll say 2/3 of the footprint, a 9-story building. But look at the red numbers around it. There is not one other 9-story building in the area. Now, the applicant testified that across the street there was an 8-story building. The answer is, in that development, the first part of the building that's closest to the street is 4 stories. That's where there's a kid academy there, and then there's a green area on the roof. And then as you go back further, it goes up to 8 stories in the middle of the block, but there's no 9-story building there. I think it's 7 stories. So the next one, slide P8, and again, there was a lot of emphasis about how there are tall buildings in the area that are comparable to this. There aren't any. On the left-hand side of P8, you'll see I have the subject property in yellow, and then across the street, the redevelopment area. And this is the regulation plan, map 2 on the redevelopment plan. And as you can see, across the street is blue, which is 4 stories with a bonus of 1 story. So the maximum you can go up there is 5 stories. The D area is existing buildings that you can have up to 5 stories as a bonus. And Zone C says 4 stories with a bonus of 2 stories. So nothing in that plan says you can be 9 stories. If you look on the right-hand side, here's map 5 in the redevelopment plan that says building bonus height regulation plan. And across the street from this property is green, maximum of 4 stories, and F, the existing height. You can't go any taller than the existing buildings there. Now, clearly the applicant loves going 9 stories because they look over everything else in the area. Great benefit. Of course, they're blocking our view on the Saffron, but I'm sure the applicant is overjoyed at getting that view. The 8th page, the 9th page has the whole redevelopment pattern. And again, I'm just emphasizing that the taller buildings that are allowed are in the interior of the block and even more than a block away. So the public policy is, as you get toward this focal point on Jersey Avenue, while the applicant says, I want to go big because this is a real important thing for my hotel, the public policy across the street is don't go big. Stay the existing height of buildings, only go 4 stories. So the applicant has a policy, and apparently a planning policy, that is nowhere in any of the planning policies of Jersey City. The next slide is P10, and the subject, there's a red mark that says subject site, and the subject site is right by the R in the word Newark. It's not in a historic district. That's the public policy. And a purist would say, even if it was in a historic district, what, you're saving 1 window? That gives you to make double the building size because you're saving a window? That doesn't make sense to me. Not only is this not in a local historic district, it's not in a state or national historic district, and it's not individually characterized by NJDEP as being eligible for historic designation. The applicant talks about this being a large lot and says, oh, that makes it peculiarly suited for a non-permitted use. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you have a large lot, you ought to be able to fit in a reasonable building, not put your restaurant out on the public property, meet the rear yard setback. You should have enough land that you don't need all of these variances. So you have to connect. The applicant says it's unique. Well, that's like saying this is the only property in Jersey City that has the address of 201 Newark Avenue. That's unique. But the answer is, how does that get you from that uniqueness to say it's peculiarly suited for a hotel? There is no logical connection, in my opinion. So let me summarize my conclusions. The applicant has the burden of proof. You might like the project, you might not like the project. The question is, has the applicant provided you with evidence that meets the positive and negative criteria for variances? As to the hotel use, that's a Medici case, the hardest case to get. You have to show that there's a public purpose advanced, you have to show that the site is particularly suited, and you have the enhanced burden of proof on the negative criteria. The applicant can't just say, oh, this is not detrimental to the master plan and the zoning ordinance. The applicant has to march through the reasons why a building twice the height and a use that's not permitted is somehow not injurious to the master plan. Again, the applicant says it's peculiar because of the size and the location. It's great for residential use over retail use. And you got enough land to do a decent building, have some parking in it, and it doesn't single out as being, in my opinion, particularly suited for hotel use. In fact, it is particularly unsuited because of the problems of access on Maxwell. Again, trucks backing out, all the action is going to go there. The applicant has says there's no required parking on the site. I think that's not a proper interpretation of the ordinance. But in any event, there have to be these machinations with valet parking and off-site use. That suggests to you that this development is clearly not proportional, is not suited to this type of use. Again, the applicant cited municipal land use law purposes A, G, I, and J. A, he talked about the great community programs that this applicant is going to provide. It's going to invite the neighbors for the area to use the Peloton machines. I suppose that if someone built a residential property here and they had an exercise room, they could do the same thing. These are minor things, in my opinion. They certainly add to the land use impacts. Again, the study that was done was hotel traffic, but there's a separate use here, which is the entertainment area. It's got a little theater in it. There's got a lot of stuff going on this property that will generate activity that has not been acknowledged, in my opinion, in terms of its land use impacts. The applicant talks about there being sufficient space in an appropriate location. The master plan and the zoning ordinance are in agreement. This is not a location for a hotel. And in fact, you can't fit it on the property because he has to bump it way up in the air and has to eat up the public property. Talks about a desirable visual environment. It's a handsome building if you like to have all these, veins on the front. It's kind of an in-your-face building. It will certainly draw attention. But aesthetics, to me, are not just the type of materials that are clad on the building. It's the bulk of the building. This will be the tallest building in an area, in a neighborhood commercial zone that your master plan should be said should be about 5 stories. And finally, the applicant relies on purpose I, preserving historic sites. It's a nice looking building. The applicant is saving one of the windows. But that's not a recognized public purpose, clearly one that would justify this huge building in an area not intended for it. So in my review, it's the applicant's burden of proof. I disagree with his characterization of the area. There are no 9-story buildings in this area. And in fact, the public policy is to go down as you, like across the street in the redevelopment area, is to keep the heights low when you're at the street. And they appear to be 4-story buildings across the street. This building has a lot of problems that are circulation oriented. They're using Maxwell, which is a substandard street. In my opinion, they're making it less pedestrian friendly because now there's no distinction between the sidewalk and where a truck can go. And my own opinion is the applicant did this because they know they're going to have to drive over the curbs. So they're making the whole thing a street, calling it pedestrian friendly. It isn't. There are obviously turning movements as indicated. There's a fire hydrant on the corner. So if you look at the standards of the Medici decision, in my opinion, there are no significant public purposes that are advanced by this. In my opinion, it is not particularly suited for a hotel use. The applicant cannot accommodate the problems from the excessive height. Just go to the top of the building of the Saffron and you'll see one of the problems is. Right now we have a great view, we have a conforming height, they want to block it. That's a negative standard, and in fact you have some testimony about what the impact of that standard is, at least financially, on the neighbors. So as I listen to the testimony, it's my opinion the applicant has not met their burden of proof. There are no substantial public purposes advanced. This is not particularly suited, and if this is approved as proposed, it will substantially impair the intent and purpose of the master plan and the zoning ordinance, and will be detrimental to the public good.
Thank you very much.
Ask any questions?
Mr. Harrington? Would you like to cross-examine?
I'm going to just get some water, if I may. It's only water.
If I could mark a few photos into the record as exhibits. A5 is a series of 3 photographs taken of the property at 532 Jersey Avenue on December 5th around 9 o'clock. A6 is a series of 3 photographs of the properties at 141 Newark Avenue, 143 Newark Avenue, that front on Columbus Drive, same time, same day. And the A7 would be a photograph facing east of another building along Columbus Drive that also is a through lot into Newark Avenue, and then you have the larger buildings to the east. These, for the record, these are all photographs that I took personally, so I can verify what they are.
I guess I don't get to look at one. Okay. Well, there'll maybe an extra one here.
I can stay next to you and show you mine. You want me to show you mine?
You can, I'll get it. That was my fault.
Okay.
That's right. So, Mr. Steck, I just want to start off really to try to clarify things. We have been talking about the property at 532 Jersey Avenue that is located directly across the street or catty corner from the subject property. I'll show you it's been marked as Exhibit A5. It says 532 Jersey Avenue on top. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Is that an accurate depiction of the building that is located across the street that goes from Jersey Avenue to Christopher Columbus Drive?
I can't verify that.
So you don't know if that building is located there?
No, I don't know if I don't know if this is an accurate photo of it. I didn't take it.
Okay. Well, I can make that representation on a record.
Okay.
That I did take this of 532 Jersey Avenue from Jersey Avenue.
Okay.
Okay, and that is the property that Mr. Seckler was referring to as it's approximately 83 and a half feet in height.
The one that's only 6 stories?
No, this is 7 stories.
Well, I'm looking at the photo,
Okay.
and there's a ground level. That's 1,
Right.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 stories.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and that's located.
7, wait a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
There.
Move to the next page,
Okay.
please. Sorry. And that gives you a better perspective of the 7 stories, correct?
The taller section. I don't know where you're asking me to look.
Here and here.
Those are set back from the front property line, right?
But there's 7 stories. I'm asking.
Yeah,
you.
but I'm saying that the redevelopment plan says you go lower when you're closer to the street. You can go higher when you go further away.
The taller section is closer to the subject property, correct? Yes, it is.
That's not how I looked at the aerial photographs. That building, if I recall, when you get further from the street, it steps up.
Okay, so let's. Let me just.
And it's not 9 stories.
It's not. I agree with that. Let's take a look at A6 that identifies 141 and 143 Newark Avenue. Are you familiar with those properties?
I'm assuming you took them accurately. I concentrated on the properties closest to the subject property, and that was on my exhibit, page 7.
Okay.
So if you can point to where that is on my exhibit, I'm happy to.
It's further. It's further up here. It's between Jersey Avenue and Grove Street.
Yeah. As you get further away, they're taller buildings, but that has less of an influence on this property. And as I said, the public policy, is that in the redevelopment area? The public policy is taller buildings can occur, but further away from Jersey Avenue.
And so how close does a building have to be for you to consider it relevant to the height?
I think the area in my survey on P7 is a good representation of the character of the area.
And what is that radius?
It's not just a radius. First of all, I wanted to make sure I had properties within the same zone. So if another zone allows taller properties, that's okay, because the governing body made that decision. They didn't change this zone. So it's not just distance. It's, yes, how close. If there was a 9-story building right next door to this, I might have a different opinion. If there was a 9-story building in another zone that permitted 9-story buildings, I might have another opinion, but that's not the facts.
Well, so your opinion is if it's not immediately on this page, P7, no one should consider it.
I didn't say that. I said that there's a priority of consideration. The redevelopment zone, the Newark area downtown, allows in some areas 8-story buildings. It's okay. That's the public policy. It isn't the public policy here.
Well, let's talk about public policy in the immediate zones. On your P7, R3 is on the left-hand side, correct?
Yes, it's distant from, it doesn't abut the subject property, but it's on the upper left-hand side or the northwest of the subject property.
How close do you think that is?
The corner might be 100 feet away.
Okay, 100 feet, a little over 30 yards. And that can, I believe you agree that in the R3 zone, you can go up to 85 feet and 8 stories on lots that are 6,000 square feet and higher, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And
That's the public policy. The governing body said it's okay in that area.
okay. But so you're not saying that, well, of course, we're before the zoning board, correct?
That's my recollection.
Yes, mine too. So that's the purpose of this. One of the purposes of this board is to look at particular properties and see maybe that zoning isn't correct. That maybe another use is more appropriate, provided you meet the positive and negative criteria and the legal proofs. Correct?
No, the board is not in a position to say the zoning isn't appropriate. The answer is there's a presumption of validity of the zoning ordinance. So the board has to listen to the testimony to see if the statutory criteria are satisfied that grant relief. But they can't say we don't like the ordinance. There's a presumption of validity to it. And it happens to be in agreement with the master plan.
But well, I'm not gonna debate you over what their obligation is. So your opinion. Well, let me ask you. You don't think it's relevant, or do you think it's relevant that this property is located directly across from a pedestrian plaza?
That means it's a congested area with not only cars and a lot of people. It has a land use influence that there's a pedestrian plaza across the intersection.
And your opinion as a professional planner is that it would not be appropriate to have a hotel use on a large lot across from a pedestrian plaza in an urban area?
I don't invent public policy. I read the policies of Jersey City, and I read the policies of the master plan. Those are the policies. What I personally think of, whether it would be economically successful or not, is irrelevant.
Well, I'm interested in what you think. I think the board might.
Well, I told you, I think that you haven't presented enough proofs that would allow this board to approve the application.
Okay, so I'm not going to get an answer. And were you aware, or are you aware, that the NC, the neighborhood commercial zone, was amended prior to the most recent master plan adoption?
I just looked at the current zoning and the current master plan, and they are consistent.
Okay. But so you're not aware of any possible reasons why the city and the planning department wouldn't have touched the NC zone?
Well, the master plan did talk about changes to the NC zone, but not in this area. They talked about changes further to the west.
Okay. But I know when when you have the master plan and you have zoning in place, there can still be properties that were not appropriately covered by the broad brush. Would you agree with that?
Well, as you know, zoning is done by districts because otherwise favoritism arrives. You know, like you can't have in a redevelopment area, you can have individual lot zoning, but to be constitutional, you got to zone by districts. So there are situations that cannot be easily handled because there's something peculiar about the property that suggests that variance relief is warranted, and then you have to go to, well, how big a variance? Is it 10% over the height limit, or is it 100% over the height limit? That's all part of the analysis.
Okay, and well, we can agree is with regard to this property, other than the Saffron property, it appears to be the largest property on the downtown Newark Avenue corridor. Would you agree with that?
In the immediate, let me look at my map. In the immediate area, within the NC1 zone, this is the second largest lot.
With the Saffron being the larger lot.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's shown on P11 in my exhibit.
Okay. And are you aware that the Saffron building was approved by the zoning board for height variances back when it was approved back in the early 2000s?
I don't know. It appears to be the appropriate height. It may be that part of the property is in a different zone. I'm not aware. I can tell you it's a 5-story building.
Well, actually,
So I'm unaware of exactly any history of variances that were granted.
yeah, actually, I think the second amendment for that was the amenity level is actually a 6th floor. It was approved by this zoning board.
Well, there's like a penthouse up there, but if we want to include penthouses, then the hotel is a 10-story building.
No, the Saffron's a 6-story building.
If you include the room, common room on the roof, I would agree with you.
Okay.
But that's set back. That's not it's visible from a pedestrian on the street.
Okay. Let me ask you about the parking you talked about. Well, you have a different interpretation from the applicant and from the Jersey City planners in their report.
Yes. I just read what the law said.
And would you, well, what if I told you it was a recommendation of the planning department to reduce parking and to close the curb cut on Newark Avenue with regard to this project?
I think you're telling the truth.
So would you consider that policy to follow?
Well, that's an opinion of a planner. The planning staff can't change the master plan and they can't change the zoning ordinance. They can make recommendations, but those are before the hearing. They didn't have all the information I think they need to make that judgment. I'll grant you it's nice to close, well, first of all, the curb cut isn't operative now behind the building, and it's nice to close that off, except that if you left it open, it might be a little easier to load and unload, but I'm living with the plan that you proposed.
Okay. And let me ask. Are you familiar with the Jersey City demolition ordinance?
No.
Okay. So you're not aware that you don't have to be historically designated in Jersey City to have a demolition permit for a property denied.
Would you ask that again? I'm not sure I understood.
Are you aware that in Jersey City, it does not matter if you are historically designated in order to prevent a demolition of a building?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, and well, so you're not you're not aware that there's a review process that goes through the planning department for a determination if there are any historic resources for a building before you can get any demolition permit.
I said I wasn't aware of it.
Okay, just make it clear, because this, there's been a lot of talk about the Capital One building not being historically designated by locally or the state, which we agree. But if, well, you've already answered. I'll scratch that. Look at. Let's look at P5.
Do you want me to put that up on the screen?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, let's see if I can
If you-
work that out. Okay.
Okay, so on P5 here, you have the 64 feet is the maximum permitted building height for a building without residential uses. Is that correct?
It doesn't have residential above the first floor commercial.
Okay. So what you're showing here does not allocate for bulkheads that would be permitted above the permitted building height of 64. Is that correct?
Right, that's the roof height, and you can have a parapet, for example, or a bulkhead sticking above it. And there's certain standards. You can't have too big a bulkhead, but there's standards.
Right, and if I told you that the standard here would be for an additional 12 feet, does that sound correct?
Yes, that's my recollection.
Okay, and I believe that's, maybe it was referenced in the Jersey City Planners Report, correct?
I don't remember that specific language, but I recall that there is an allowance for a bulkhead that's not too tall.
Okay, well, let's turn back to P4. And the bottom diagram you have there is, I'm assuming on the right-hand side, that's reflective of a, well, let me back up, I'm sorry. That's reflective of the proposed building, correct?
On the right-hand, you mean on the lower side?
Lower right-hand side, yes, with your checkered area.
Well, the upper one is your architect's exhibit that I put red on.
Yep.
And again, it looks like it was kind of reduced in width as you by the lens, and I did kind of the opposite. I expanded it, but as you can see from the arrows, I tried to align the view with the buildings that were in the background. So that was my attempt to approximate what is going to be blocked by the new building.
Okay, but the lower picture, right-hand side, the lower level, that, correct me if I'm wrong, is that supposed to be a depiction of how high the proposed building is in that area?
I'm not sure I understand your question. That's the only manipulation I did with that photograph is I took a panorama view. So it's broader than if you were standing there, and on the right-hand side is the other part of the saffron, and then that open space is the courtyard between the two halves of the saffron building. And I took it, that other half doesn't have community facilities on top. I took standing on what is in the photo, the left side, because that's where the pool is.
Okay, but the lower diagram, the purpose of that picture is to try to demonstrate what views will be obstructed by the proposed building.
Yes.
Okay. And on the right-hand side, the proposed building is 71 feet in height. Do you agree with that?
I'd have to look at the plans, but I just reproduced on the upper photo. I put red lines on it, and around your applicant's exhibit, and I simply expanded it horizontally, not vertically. So, in my opinion, that's a fair approximation of what's going to be blocked.
Okay, so I'm representing that side, and the plans represent that it's 71 feet on that side of the
Okay.
building. Okay. So with the permitted bulkheads, the height of an as-of-right building could be 76 feet in total, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this view or obstruction could be all across the subject property at 5 feet higher than what you're showing for an as-of-right development. Is that correct?
It could be. You would just see the taller buildings behind it.
But you'd have this.
There'd be some blockage by a conforming building, but it would not be to this extent.
You could have. Well, we'll show that later. Yeah, I have nothing further for Mr. Steck.
I think, Iris, are you? Oh,
And you don't have any redirect.
I have no redirect. Thank you.
okay.
Mr. Stecker,
Yes, okay. It's approximately 8:23, let's say 8:25, 15 minutes, is that good for you? Okay, so 8:40 we'll resume. 8:40. Okay, can we start? It's 8:43. Okay. Okay, okay. Okay, at this time, we will ask the public if they have any questions just for those two witnesses. These are questions only. This is not for you to come up and tell us what you're thinking about the project, et cetera. But if you have any questions from the public for the two witnesses, you can please come up to the mic. You'll have to state your name and your address, spell your name, and ask your question.
seeing none, okay, how about the commission?
Okay, are there any commissioners that have questions for the two witnesses? For the two witnesses only, questions?
There was some picture, is this on? It's green, but it's not. You hear me, anybody? It's green. Is that working? Yeah, that's better. I seen, I just had a question about, did anyone have any of the two witnesses, maybe even others I'll ask later, but of any photos or views from in other directions of the building? Because it seemed like everyone has just the picture of facing east, but not north, west, or south from the rooftop, I mean. Just like there's no panoramic kind of view here. It was just, I was just curious if anybody had a picture or something like that.
I can maybe address that because I've worked with, you've seen a bunch of the
Okay.
witnesses, the residents and everything.
Okay.
it's that eastward view toward the Hudson, and it's actually Jersey City skyline. Yes, there are other, I mean,
It is,
you
yep.
want to look over at the highway, you can turn around.
Well,
But that's the one they care about, and that's what all the photographs
Okay, I
are.
was just curious if anyone had them, so we could actually see that too.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you're welcome
'Cause
to go
I-
up there, but I mean, you got a beautiful view of, 78 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I just, that's,
Yeah, but there's a reason. I just wanted to know, it's not like there's gorgeous views, except, I've got something on my
Well-
back, except in one direction. Everything else is kind
Okay.
of crap. That's the direction you want to look at.
Okay.
I differ on that. No, I'm good.
Okay, the commission has no other questions?
I know, I
Of
need
the,
to
just of
see
the
it.
two people.
Just to the two, because he keeps saying that the.
Go ahead. Yes, yes, yeah.
I did have one more, hold on.
I know the gentleman kept saying that the trucks going into Maxwell the trucks going into Maxwell, you're saying that when they go into delivery, that they would then have to back up into Jersey Avenue. Is that correct?
They would have to back up down Maxwell Street, all towards Jersey Avenue.
Why?
Not necessarily into Jersey
Not
Avenue.
into Jersey Avenue. Oh, okay, because I'm getting the impression like you're making it seem like these trucks, once they go into Maxwell and they deliver or whatever, that they're going to have to back up into Jersey Avenue to leave.
They'll have to-
Whereas I'm just assuming, to me, it's just correct going all the way up to Maxwell and taking Cold Street.
They'll have to back up out of the site driveway onto Maxwell Street, and it's hard to say exactly how far they'll have to back up, but potentially into the sidewalk, onto the Jersey Avenue sidewalk before they pull forward towards Cole Street.
Are you saying that because maybe the entrance to the garage is really close to Jersey Avenue, and that's why they need to back up in order to turn? I don't see that. Why can't they just go right in, go into whatever they're gonna do, and then keep going straight into Maxwell to Cole Street?
They have to back up to straighten out, and they have to straighten out their wheels on Maxwell Street, right? Because it's a very narrow right of way.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very close distance between the bumper, but according to the plans that the applicant submitted, it's a very small distance between the edge of the bumper and the wall of the building, right? So they'll have to very carefully navigate backwards without looking behind them, right? They'll have the applicant suggested that there would be a valet person guiding them backwards. And then once they back out onto Maxwell Street and straighten out, they have to straighten out their vehicle, right? Because it's such a narrow right of way. Then they start pulling forward.
So they'll pull forward down Maxwell and make the right or left on Jersey.
They'll pull forward, they'll go westbound on Maxwell and then turn
Maxwell
left on
and
Coles.
Turn left, yeah.
And
because
left on
Maxwell-
Coles, okay.
yeah, Cole Street is all the way left. You gotta turn left.
Yeah, you
if
have
you're gonna go
to,
down
Coles is
Maxwell.
one way southbound.
Yeah, it's just one way.
And I have a follow-up question for you on that, which is that in the meantime, cars are going to be queuing on Jersey to turn to head west on Maxwell. And I think that's part of what you mentioned. The trucks backing up, beep, 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 whatever, and the car's trying to turn in. And that's where, so even if the truck doesn't back all the way to Jersey,
Yeah.
that's where you're going to have problems.
But you're anticipating that these are gonna be huge trucks.
Oh, SU-30s are big. They're big, big, big. The testimony from the applicant was much larger than a UPS panel truck. They're not semis, but they're big, big trucks. You can see it from the diagram. You can see it from the diagram how big
I
they are.
see. Okay.
Okay, we have no other further,
Any other questions from the board? For any of these, either of these?
no.
So no, I have one.
Okay.
So for the delivery on the truck, it may not be necessary for them to pull in, just say if they had like 3 or 4 boxes, right? Would it be okay, in your opinion, if they stopped on Jersey Avenue and maybe hand truck the boxes or the 'cause I see people do it all the time.
Just because they do it doesn't mean it's okay, right?
yeah.
That's an enforcement issue.
Exactly.
Or they can just easily go drive right into Maxwell, take whatever they have to do, take it out, and then just keep going straight without having to back up. I just, that to me just
block-
kinda
I mean,
stayed in
blocking
my
the right of
mind,
way is-
that you kept saying that they're gonna back into Jersey Avenue. Because I grew up downtown, so I'm very familiar with that.
I also want to ask if you could point out the difference in delivery volume between just a little panel truck giving, Cokes to a store versus hotel laundry and linen service and food supplies for a restaurant of that size. Again, the SU-30 was testified as the size of a garbage truck. That's the size of deliveries we're talking about, and you should say it, not me.
Just
Go ahead.
if you,
You said it.
Go ahead.
some of these questions you have for Mr. Simoff are really operational questions that would be more appropriate probably for Mr. Curtella
Okay.
to address, and we can bring that
So
up
we'll
and
wait
address
until
that
you're, okay.
in rebuttal.
Yeah, because we have more questions.
Okay. All right. So if there are no further questions for these two witnesses from either of the commissioners or the public, then thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, now,
Mr. Harrington, we're up to you now.
right.
Where are, you want to do rebuttal?
Do you have individuals yeah. So do
Oh,
you
is
have
it-
other witnesses that,
No, I don't
You're
have any.
done.
Well, I have
Okay.
rebuttal witnesses.
Mhm,
Okay,
okay.
so you want to do that before I cross-examination of their, they have 3 other witnesses
Oh, they come from,
that I did not cross-examine.
yes, they here now, these people?
I believe
okay.
so.
Okay.
So
So
it's-
then-
I'll defer to the board. Do you want to do
Yes,
that
go
first?
ahead.
Let's go
All
finish
right.
with them, and then you can put on your rebuttal case.
Okay, and I believe Mr. Dalvey was the first. Am I pronouncing that incorrectly?
No, that's fine. Dalvi.
Dalvey.
Vikrant is the first name, Dalvi is the last name.
Okay.
I wanted to get to the nitty-gritty.
Vikrant Dalvi, Vikrant, Dalvi, Dalvi.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Dalvey. So, my recollection, just so I'm clear and the board's clear, is that when you were testifying, you testified with regard to this exhibit that's marked O2? Okay, thanks. And just, I guess, for the record, again, it was a while, I think it was maybe in December?
November, actually, November 14th.
November when you testified.
November 14th.
Yes, thank you.
Page 91.
Thank you. You don't have to certify that you read the transcript. So, yeah, just to refresh everybody's recollection, you are not a registered architect in New Jersey, correct?
No.
Okay. And as a result of not being a registered architect in New Jersey, you cannot testify before boards as a registered architect,
I'm a registered architect in New York.
but not
so-
New Jersey.
Not in New Jersey. And it's a reciprocal license, essentially. You don't need to give any more exams for a separate license. It's just administrative paperwork because most of the codes and other things in New Jersey and New York is very similar. So you just have to fill out some admin paperwork to get a license in New Jersey, but I don't have that.
Okay. And what you submitted as was marked as O2, they're not signed and sealed, correct?
Yeah, because these are not for approval for any permit. These are just observations from their drawings, which I took and recreated some line work on top of it just to highlight how detrimental this project is. So I have not designed or created any project that I need an approval. I'm just taking an existing project that was presented and putting my findings on top of it.
Okay, but you,
I did not sign, it does not require sign and seal drawings if I'm just doing a presentation which is not for approval or for,
but you don't have the authority or the ability to sign and seal these in New Jersey.
no.
Okay. And if I recall, you don't live at the Saffron presently, correct?
No,
Okay, so you lease out your unit?
rent out, yeah.
Rent out, and it's not an Airbnb, is it?
No.
Okay.
Just
Has,
get me into trouble.
as a board member, are you aware of any possible Airbnbs in the Saffron?
No, we are very tight regulations. We fine heavily if something like that. Gabby can testify
Okay,
to that. So.
thank you. So you presented, if I recall, 3 photographs as part of O2. Is that your recollection?
I did, yeah, I have a bunch of exhibits. Which one? You're talking about the renderings, or I presented?
Just the photographs of the unit.
Yeah. Yeah, two.
Okay. So, and if I recall, actually, I'm reading from the transcript.
Yeah, I forgot what the heck.
I don't know the time, but this shows the morning that when you took those photographs.
Yeah, these were a long time back. These are not recent, so I don't remember the exact
It's a
time.
waste of time.
Okay. Do you remember the exact day?
These were essentially, I think, I don't remember the exact month or day now.
Okay.
It's-
So, when you say they were taken in the morning, it could be anywhere from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay. And you did a study as part of O2 where it's called a shadow study, where you did it based upon or at 8 a.m. in the morning. Is that correct?
Yeah, because so when your team presented, they had shadow studies from 9 a.m., 10 a.m. for different days, and what your team said that the shadow impact is more severe during the winter months, which is October to February, and due to the daylight savings and everything, typically, like the sun, the 8 a.m. is a good time to reflect because the day starts early during the winter months. So I thought that it would be helpful to know what the impact is on 8 a.m. as well. So that's why I added the 8 a.m.
And your shadow study was based upon the proposed project?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't do any analysis at 8 a.m. of the existing condition, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay. And you didn't provide any analysis as to what the shadow effect would be from an as-of-right height of a building on that property?
No, I did not.
Okay. So we only have that one analysis of the proposed project, correct?
So what I took your project, and just for the winter months, October, November, December, January, February, you had already provided 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. I added an 8 a.m. for those days.
Right, and if you recall, we did a comparison as to the existing condition versus the proposed condition. Do you recall that?
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't have that as part of your analysis?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And the golden colored lines, I'll call it, that you have within your report, were they just prepared by you?
Yes.
And is there any education or training you do to do that?
Yeah, so in architecture, you have a 5-year program, and it's
Oh my
not just
God,
design.
this is-
There's climatology, sustainability, planning. It's basically the whole gamut. But you're not like you get a degree of architecture where you learn these things, like the sun studies and the climate and the shadows. It's part of the program. So during my bachelor's and master's, I have a master's in architectural design. We are educated to analyze these, not as a professional, but as an education, like as a program, like as a course during college. And also when you get into professional practice, you do sun studies using various softwares, and then you gain knowledge how typically the sun would work and how courtyards work, how the light reflects. I don't have the exact angle, but this is a conceptual iteration of how the courtyard helps being a light well.
So it's just a conceptual rendering.
It is conceptual, yeah. It shows how the courtyard functions, how the light would reflect from one facade to the other, and that way help lit up the other facade, which is in shade. So if you shade this facade, you're actually shading both the facades. So that's what this shows.
Okay. When you're part of O2, you provided a photograph of the building across the street, and you referenced a 4-story or 5-story structure. Is that, if you recall?
Yeah, it's here. Let me just open it.
And if I recall, you said you walk that way to the path every day.
Yeah, to the office, yeah.
And it's a short walk to the path, right?
Yep.
And I'm assuming you make a left on Columbus and walk down?
No,
to
I
the
walk
path?
I walk on Newark. Keep
Okay.
walking straight to Newark.
Okay.
Just keep-
And how long is your walk to the path station?
it's like from my 10-minute walk from where I live.
Okay. Yeah, and you don't walk on Columbus Drive?
No, I like walking on Newark.
Okay. All right, I've
Okay.
There's someone else
Yeah.
who wanted to question?
Yeah, it's,
Joseph Medici?
Mr. Medici, I'll swear you in one moment tonight as well, please. Do you swear that the testimony you'll provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your full name for me again.
Joseph Medici,
Spell your last name.
Medici.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Medici. Welcome back. So I believe that your testimony,
Excuse me, sir,
you can
I
hear.
have a hearing impairment. If you speak into the mic, I can hear you.
I recall that. I apologize. Can you hear me better or no? Okay, great. So at the last meeting that you testified, you established you're a licensed appraiser in New Jersey? You're a licensed, that's better. You're a licensed appraiser in New Jersey, correct?
New Jersey licensed appraiser, correct.
Okay. And under your license, are you limited on what properties you can appraise?
I'm sorry.
Are you limited on properties that you can appraise? For example, can you appraise only residential properties?
Residential properties, yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you. Okay. And you mentioned when testifying that there are certain forms provided by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac that you use in your appraisals. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you presented what I'm showing you as 04. Do you recall that slide deck?
Pardon me?
Do you recall testifying with regard to that slide deck?
Well, certainly some of this information is what I testified to.
Okay.
But not specifically exactly this.
Well,
In other words, I didn't see it in this way. I was asked questions, I answered it.
okay. Well, it's your exhibit, not mine.
Pardon me?
It's your exhibit, not mine.
This isn't what I prepared.
I entered this, so this is what your office gave me.
Okay.
And this is what was on the screen when you were
All
testifying.
right. I just didn't recognize in that format. That's
Right, the office had formatted it, is my understanding.
It's okay.
So when we look at 04, it's the title, the first page. If you could turn to the first page. It says market appraisal, correct? First
That's
page.
what it says, yes.
Yes. So is this considered an appraisal report?
Is it
Would you, is this an appraisal report?
No.
No.
This wasn't a market appraisal of the subject or any of the condo units. This was an analysis of the whole project, listing some of the units and sales in the complex.
Okay. So just for the record, it's not an appraisal report. And so if I recall correctly, you focused on two sales at the Saffron, Unit 512 and Unit 312. Do you recall that?
Yes, and I remember a question came up, were they directly over each other? Or were they in the same location, just different floor? And I can answer that and say, yes, they are.
Okay, and do you know which side of the Saffron they're located on? Were the Maxwell side or the Newark Avenue side?
No, I don't.
Okay. And I believe the premise, your conclusion or theory was that Unit 512 on the fifth floor would sell for more than unit 312 on the third floor because it's located higher in the building. Is that right?
Well, the higher floors bring more money.
Right. And okay. And so 512 sold for $880,000 and 312 sold for $820,000, correct?
620. Oh, 820, I'm sorry, yes.
820. Did I say it wrong?
Correct.
I'm sorry. All right. So we shouldn't be surprised that 512 sold for more than 312, right? I mean, by $60,000 because it's at a higher floor?
No, not really.
Okay. And did you look at the listings for these properties at all?
I have them with me,
Okay.
and I bought information for the board and for you. If you'd like that information, I have it here.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is it accurate that both these units
It's
were?
as accurate
No, no, no.
as the Hudson County multiple listing
No, I'm
certifies to.
I'm trying to just jump to the question. Is if you since you have the listing, is it accurate that they were both listed at, I believe, $790,000 for sale?
How much, sir? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Were they both listed for $790,000 for sale? Or seven? Let me see.
I just have to look at the listings. Yes, to answer your question, 312 was listed at 799 and sold for 820.
Correct. And wasn't I believe 512 was listed for the same amount?
I'm sorry, sir.
Was 512 listed for at the same amount?
$512 was listed at actually the same price, $799. That sold for $880.
Right. So both units sold for more than their list price.
Yes, they did.
Okay. All right. So
One considerably more, one sold for $880, the one on the fifth floor.
so the market's strong there.
I'm sorry.
The market is strong there when you're getting above asking price.
I didn't understand.
You
He didn't hear you.
okay. So is it your opinion that the market is strong for those particular units because they sold at prices higher than their list price?
The market was strong, yes. And the fact that they were both listed at the same price shows that they were, there was a demand, but the demand only rose to a certain point for 312. It went higher for 512, being the upper floor.
Okay, and let me ask you this. Do you know how many parking spaces are within the Saffron garage?
I don't.
You don't, okay. Do you know if either Unit 312 or 512 has any access to any parking in the Saffron
Well,
garage?
excuse me, the listing states they have one car covered, so one car in the garage.
For which unit?
Pardon me?
For Unit 512?
The Saffron, yeah, has one car.
Well, there's 50, and Gabby can correct it. I believe there's 50 parking spaces in the garage.
The units we're talking about each have one car, comes with the unit, one car covered parking.
Does that say it in the listing? Because
That's
the
what it
Zill-
says in the listing.
Okay, the Zillow listing says that 312 only has parking upon availability.
The listing for 512 states one car covered garage.
Yep.
The listing for 312 It doesn't state the parking. It says see remarks. I don't see anything in remarks referencing it. Wait, Saffron includes an indoor parking garage for an additional monthly fee.
Right, so is,
So the parking was available if they're willing to pay the additional monthly fee.
or parking is available if a space is available in the garage.
Well, I would assume when they're selling these units that they're,
Questions are irrelevant.
they can at that time lease one space.
So can I just ask a question here, so that again, so 512 comes with a deeded parking spot?
My understanding, it's not deeded, it's subject to availability, and if you rent it, you got it, you have the rights to it.
What's the difference between
The 312, I don't believe they have the
I
the availability.
apologize. Everybody's speculating, but we have a guy who knows the answer to this. I'm happy to put him on. This is Gabby Feliu. He's the president of the HOA board. You've had him and sworn him in before. You're speculating. He knows the answer to this.
You
It's
don't
an
really
interesting.
care.
It's an interesting answer.
doesn't
There's no
matter.
way. There's no way. Within all good faith in the world, these two guys couldn't have known it. But Gabby knows the answer.
But I just kind of wondering, where is this questioning going?
Question is if I'm buying a unit where I have a parking space, it's going to be more valuable than the one that doesn't. So it's just I guess I'm trying to find out why it's a surprise that the higher unit is selling for more than the lower unit.
Well, if you,
he could put whatever he wants. You never know what the theory of these things look
Well,
like. 312 can have a Bunsen burner, and 512 can have, a Miele appliances. How do we know that?
well, that's
Kind of irrelevant.
that. Well, okay, that's exactly the point. We did.
Yeah.
Mr. Medici, when you testified before the board, you didn't provide any other adjustments or analysis with regard to a review of these units. Is that correct?
well, what I did,
Well, how about this,
I-
Mr. Medici?
I'm sorry, sir, I'm having trouble hearing you if you don't speak into the mic.
You never went into, hold on a second. Oh, look at that. You never went into either of these units, 312 or 512.
No, I haven't, but it's standard.
That doesn't matter. It's yes or no. You didn't go in.
No, I haven't
You don't know
been
what's
in-
inside
oh,
them.
I was not inside them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
I was inside them visually because you have a virtual tour of all of these units. My feet didn't go inside, but I saw the inside of the units. But what I wanted to say, I reviewed 8 sales in the Saffron over the past 2 years.
But these
The
aren't-
lowest sale was $635,000.
Doesn't matter.
That's a first floor unit. As the values go up on the units, the sale prices go up, the floors go up. The highest sale was the 880 unit on the 5th floor. So the first floor was 635, the 5th floor was 880. That's like a 25% difference. And the main difference is the upper floors. The only place that the lower floors sell for more money is in a senior citizen complex, because everybody wants to be on the first floor. But when you get into luxury condos, up is better and more expensive.
Okay, but you didn't testify to those sales at the last meeting, correct?
I think I referenced them. I don't know if I referenced them individually, but I brought all that information if the board would like it.
Okay, and if I recall correctly, you came to a conclusion that there's a 10% negative effect on the value from this project. Is that accurate?
It's a 10% cumulative, taking in all the different conditions that were required to, when we appraise these units, and we have to do a Fannie Mae appraisal, that has to be
But
approved.
this is not an appraisal report.
Pardon?
You said earlier it's not an appraisal report.
What is not?
What you presented.
This is referencing the sale prices and the floors that they're on and the dates of sale. And it stands to reason that the lowest was 635, the highest was 880, and it's floor 1 to 5 in that order, and that's how they sell.
And
Any salesman or any appraiser testifying will tell you that the higher floors bring more money. It's just a fact.
okay, and that, I'll stipulate to that. Yeah, and these other sales, we don't have any adjustments or presented to the board, or were you ever in any of those units?
But as far as adjustments.
Yes or
sir,
no?
When you get into condos, if they're all the same square footage, like most of those condos are 992 square feet to 1065. So they all have 2 baths, they all have 2 bedrooms. So as far as adjustments, the only adjustments you're making are for floor, for view, for location. Those are the only adjustments.
Okay, as an appraiser, that's the only adjustments you would make.
Pardon me?
That, as an appraiser, that's the only adjustments you would make.
And the same building with the same units.
Okay.
You know, the same building with similar square foot units.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
you have another witness that you wanted to question?
I have a rebuttal.
No, but I mean,
Oh, yeah, one more.
yeah, with the,
Thank you.
Thank you.
He can't hear, and why did he even do that to him? Really, it was a waste of time. He didn't make a point. Chuck made no points.
Yes.
Listen here, Chuck made no points.
Yes, I do. You're welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. So,
I'm sorry, who is this gentleman?
this is Gabby Falou?
Yes, that's fine.
All right.
Correct.
Okay, and if I recall correctly, can I say Gabby instead of?
Sure, you can call me Gabby. That's fine.
You,
Oh, December 12th, I don't have that transfer.
so you are the current president of the Saffron Condo Board, is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so with the Saffron Garage, do you have any problems with those cars backing up into Maxwell Street?
No, because they don't need to.
Because it's circular?
They turn around in the garage. They come in facing Kohl's and they exit facing Kohl's.
Right, because the
Yeah.
garage is set
You
up
don't need
so
to
that
back
the-
out. No car ever
Okay.
backs out of the Saffron.
Okay.
And for clarification, no deliveries ever go through the Saffron garage.
Where do they go? For the commercial?
Front. And there's no commercial really. It's just a real estate office and a little deli. So with a phone repair place. So there's not a lot of deliveries there.
Okay, when the deli gets deliveries, it is an
Front.
on-site
They
loading?
do not go into the garage.
Is there a designated on-street loading zone?
No, there
on
isn't.
Avenue? No.
No. Well, at least I'm not aware if there is one.
And we just, well, it's accurate that the existing Saffron building has 2 wings, right? The Newark Avenue and the Maxwell
With the
Street.
courtyard in the middle.
Okay.
Sure.
And all of the windows face into the courtyard or to Maxwell Street or Newark Avenue. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. There's
Yes.
no windows that face to the east in your building, correct?
Correct. Well, the rooftop,
No windows.
no window, is just an open space. Correct.
Okay. And I know you were here earlier. Did you do any analysis, or I know in your presentation you had concerns about the view, but did you do any review or analysis of what a building would look like if it were built under the current zoning up to 72 feet?
As a fact witness, I have no idea why I would do that.
Okay,
The
so the
answer
answer's
to that
no.
is no.
Okay, well, we got a lot of diagrams from fact witnesses, so,
Yeah.
okay. That's all I have.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now, as you do rebuttal.
So, Mr. Harrington, where are we now? At your rebuttal?
Okay.
How many witnesses do you have for that?
Very quickly.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start and see how far we go.
Should we tell them we're going to stop at 10?
I think we said that, right? Mr. Harrington, you know we have to stop at 10 because the guards
the guard
shoot
is
us, I
staying
think,
tonight.
or something like
Oh,
that.
no, this thing.
They'll keep you inside.
The guard is staying tonight.
Don't put that, yes.
I thought we could keep going.
The guard is staying tonight.
Oh, he's staying tonight?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, let's see how far we go. then.
Good, I want to see that. I want to see that architecture.
Sure.
Do you swear that the testimony you will provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last.
Sure. Jose Carballo, C-A-R, B as in boy, A-L-L-O.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome. It's just the rendering.
The one with the back?
Yeah, the one in red.
Yeah.
We're good? Okay, Mr. Carballo has been previously sworn as an expert in architecture? Or accepted, I mean.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
did it.
So, Mr. Carballo, there's been a lot of talk about how the view would be obstructed with an as-of-right building under the current zoning. Were you here were you here earlier?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And did you do an analysis of that?
Yeah, we actually did this rendering, and what this rendering shows is
And before you start, while you fix the computer, I'd like to offer this as A8. Go ahead.
So we did this rendering of an as-of-right building. It has a 4-foot parapet around it, and it has the 2 stairwells that will connect the exit paths of the other building, and it has as well as an elevator shaft, towards the left of the building. It actually shows a penthouse, just like all the other buildings, so that you can go outside and enjoy the green area. This is what it looks like. The stairwells are 9 foot high, which gives you about 8 feet inside plus the structure, and you can see that 9 foot dimension goes across the view, and this is what it will look like. So you will still have some views blocked. However, if you look to the left, if you look north, you can see Midtown Manhattan. You can see other views. So we're not completely eliminating the views or the view paths for the Saffron. There are other views that are just as nice.
And this is a presumed 76 feet in height?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All right.
I just wanted him to present that to you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have someone else, Mr. Arrington?
Yeah, I'm gonna,
He said
I'll
he's
bring up
done.
Connor Monfret.
For the restaurant.
Yeah,
Yeah, but, okay, we can do that. We're gonna ask those questions right after this.
Hi. How are you? Yeah, sure thing.
Do you swear that the testimony you will provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Connor Montferrat, M-O-N-T,
I know.
F as in Frank, E-R-R-A-T.
Connor, could you give the board the benefit of your professional and educational qualifications?
Absolutely. I'm a certified general real estate appraiser in the state of New Jersey. I hold my realtor sales license. I'm also an appraiser with the MAI designation. My background in education consists of a bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, 2 master's degrees from Rutgers University from the Edward J. Blaustein School for Planning and Public Policy, one being a master in public policy, the other being in regional and city planning.
And Connor, what does it mean to be an MAI, and what does that stand for? Is it something you just sign up for?
No way. MAI is to be a member of the Appraisal Institute. It's the highest mark in real estate expertise in the country and is widely recognized in courts and in governing bodies.
Okay. So, thank you, Connor. For the purposes of this application and tonight, did you do a review of, I missed,
He has to.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's just.
Medici, yes. Okay.
Does the board have any questions for me? Okay. Oh, I meant about
I mean-
qualifications.
I mean, is he being accepted as an expert?
You got it. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Connor, you reviewed the presentation materials that Mr. Medici provided. Is that correct?
I did. That was part of my scope of work.
And you did an analysis on it, correct?
I did.
Can you give the board the benefit of your review and thoughts on his analysis?
Sure. Yeah, it's not always my favorite thing to critique another appraiser, but it's part of our line of work. It's typical industry where we review other peers' work, and I review appraisals that go out the door out of our office, out of our firm every day. And in my review of the appraisal that was presented, which the witness said is not an appraisal now, but it's presented as an appraisal. But in my view, it just does not meet minimum standards that are required by appraisers.
And before you get too deep, the report you prepared, let's mark that as A9.
Absolutely. Yeah, A9 it is.
And could you identify that report on the record?
That's the appraisal review report that I authored.
Okay.
Do you want me to put that on the screen, or?
Would the board like, yeah, well, let's put it on the screen for the benefit of people attending.
Sorry, folks, waiting for it to load. has a copy, right?
Yes.
Good, good.
Would you like us to, well, I don't want him to have to do two things at once.
Yeah, I think it's because I'm not on the Wi-Fi. There it goes.
Did you already plug it in to your computer?
Yeah, I wanted to throw it up first so everybody didn't have to look at my desktop. There we go. Anybody want one page or is one page better?
That works.
Okay.
Okay, Connor, if you could give us the highlights of your report and overview.
Sure. So a lot of the review that I had conducted was to figure out whether the appraisal presented in front of you was either USPAP compliant or not. And USPAP is kind of the gold standard, the Bible for appraisers. It's known as the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. And across the board, the presentation that was made in front of you is not USPAP compliant in no shape or form. And the main items are pointed out on page 7 and 8 of my report.
And you heard Mr. Medici just before stating that he does not consider his report or his presentation an appraisal report, right?
Yes, but that's highly misleading because it's labeled market appraisal.
Okay. And
So it's presented to you as an appraisal.
did you find any other deficiencies or issues with his analysis?
I did. A lot of the presentation presented in front of you had no data collection or analysis or research, no verification of either square footage or the sales. So it just appeared to be kind of thrown together and presented in front of you.
In your report, you reference what a net opinion. What's your opinion, or why do you think it would be a net opinion?
Net opinions are opinions out of thin air with no support, whether it be market evidence or from data or from interviews with market participants like brokers.
Okay. Have you done any independent analysis as to any effect?
I have. As part of my review, I did an independent analysis of some of the sales that Mr. Medici had presented in front of you. I determined that there is a floor premium associated with the Saffron. Higher units on higher floors do sell for a higher value. I did a detailed analysis of price trends at the Saffron versus Jersey City overall. In 2 out of the last 4 years, Saffron values actually fell as compared to the rest of Jersey City that rose over the past 4 and 5 years. I also found that buyers actually prefer to be located at the Newark building, or the one at Maxwell building, I misspoke, which was surprising to me because the Newark building is the one that has the rooftop terrace and the rooftop view. But I can only come to the conclusion that the buyers want to live at the Maxwell building because it's less noisy, less street traffic, less vehicular traffic, and that's why they'd rather be located at the building.
Okay. And just kind of going back to the Medici presentation, do you see any, or upon your review, do do you see any evidence or documentation that would support his conclusion that there is going to be a 10% negative effect from this project?
No, I do not. Instead, buyers care about what floor they're located on, what building they're located at, how many bedrooms are in their unit, how much square feet they have. All these other factors are important to a buyer of a home, a condominium here, than the view.
Okay, what about the skyline? Is that an issue? Did you review that?
I did. And in my view of the data and analysis of the data, there was no indication that buyers cared about it. Now, that's a hard thing to swallow because home buyers, it's an emotional thing. Home buying, and I cannot dismiss how home buyers feel. I mean, that's a real thing. But I'm here just to talk about the numbers, and I cannot diminish how they feel whatsoever. But the fact is that these are just home sales to home sales, paired sales of like-kind homes inside of the Saffron that show no difference in the selling price. If anything, as I was saying before, which was really interesting, was that buyers prefer to be at the Maxwell building. There's higher selling prices and there's higher selling price per square foot. And that was definitely a shock to me.
Okay, thank you, Connor. Then maybe now's a good time to just pivot to the market study report you prepared. Could you speak to that, and let's mark that as A10.
Sure.
And could you tell us a little bit what the purpose of this report is?
As part of my review, I really wanted to take a deeper dive into figuring out the marketability of this project and how it would function as a hotel. And so part of my analysis was the review, and the other analysis was how viable would a hotel be here, and then what impact would it have on surrounding property values and surrounding homes, including condominium units at the Saffron.
And what did you find?
I know, I read this long report and then it's got down to one sentence. I found that that there's no impact on the view. That was the first thing. And I figured that out through paired sales of existing condominium units facing existing hotels in Jersey City. Now, I've worked in Jersey City since 2015 now. I got my start working on walk-ups on JFK, and a first big case of a condemnation lot that Hudson County was taking. And now I get to work with the Division of Planning on new developments. We review applications at our firm and myself personally for existing and new developments in Jersey City. I work for the EDA and NJ Transit. I just recently worked on the Liberty State Park and Ride. I worked on Liberty State Park for the EDA and the DEP. And so I'm in Jersey City every day now. But the finding of existing condominium units facing hotels is not an easy task. But I was able to determine that the 201 Garrison Avenue condominium building faces the Ramada Inn right in Journal Square. And then the Portofino waterfront residences face the Sonesta Suites right on 2nd Street. And so that, by using paired sales of condominium units that face the hotel versus condominium units that do not face the hotel, I found that there was no difference in the selling price. That's presented both in my review report and on page 39 of my market study report. That was my quantitative analysis.
Okay. Anything else?
As part of a greater qualitative analysis, because I really wanted to understand how the hotel would impact the neighborhood, I identified from my prior competitive set of hotels that this hotel would compete with. And I analyzed their entire neighborhoods and their surrounding property values and their surrounding land uses. And I found at the Element Harrison in right near the path. I found at the Holiday Inn Express
In Jersey City?
in Jersey City, the Canopy and the Residence Inn in Jersey City, and even the Ramada Inn in Journal Square. These were all hotels that were built, even the Ramada in Journal Square was built in '91, and redevelopment's still occurring in Journal Square. The same thing occurred on the other hotels that were constructed, and they served as a catalyst or were part of the overall redevelopment plan. And they just weren't standalone. And they had no negative impact on the surrounding property values.
Would you say they had a positive impact?
They did. They increased land values, which means that your existing developments or your existing home values increase as well. When you get an increase in your price of your home, the land is actually what's increasing. Your building's depreciating over time, unless you're constantly renovating it every year, with your partner giving you a new project every other week.
Okay. Anything else?
The last thing that I wanted to get to was that I did find market viability for this hotel. It's a far different market than the post-pandemic 2020, 2021 market, and the stats kind of prove it. We've had a tremendous increase in revenue rates. They're known as average daily rates of hotels, so they're called ADR. And we've also had a dramatic increase in occupancy too. We went from a low in this market from 42% to now averaging 74%. That's a completely turn of the market.
When you say this market, what market are you talking about? Is it Jersey City, Hudson County?
Thanks. Yes, that'd be both Jersey City and among the competitive set, which was about 5 identified hotels.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I'm open for any and all questions from the board.
Hi, you did a study about the neighbors, their housing. Did you do a study about how the restaurants and the bars feel about the business they might or might not get? Because when I think of Newark Avenue, that plaza, I just think of all the restaurants and bars I go to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's there for, right? That's why the mayor closed it off, to give these people business, right? Like he did with Grove Street after COVID. He shut it off so the restaurants would survive. So did you do a study to see about their businesses with a new hotel?
I didn't.
You didn't? I was just curious.
Yeah.
But I guess, in your opinion, can you give an opinion as to whether it would be a positive effect on the commercial properties on Newark Avenue?
I can. Yeah. The new hotel guests that would be visiting would be going to not just one restaurant, they'd be going to other restaurants in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned that you took a look at property values in other parts of Jersey City that have hotels or motels, whatever it might be.
Yes.
Okay, so are those buildings by those hotels, motels, condos, or are they just rentals, the majority of them?
It's a mixed bag.
Uh-huh.
And then that's why I had to identify those 2 condominium buildings that actually face the hotel.
Okay, and would you say that the neighborhood is quite different where those hotels are that you're talking about and the rentals or the mixed combination of the hotels and condos compared to the neighborhood that we're talking about right now?
No, I think that
You wouldn't say it's more residential and more community-like on Newark Avenue, what we're talking about, than the neighborhoods where the hotels are?
that's a great point you have. From my data, it doesn't matter whether it's a $200,000 condominium buyer or a $1.5 million condominium buyer. They don't care that they face a hotel.
I guess I'm just not talking about facing a hotel. I guess I'm just talking about what's going on in the neighborhood, so, okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
I think Ann has the question. Ann, do you have?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I
Hi, Ann.
actually, hello there. I just have one question for you, and then what I may possibly do is put on young Joe Medici. Joe Medici Senior can't hear. He can't hear this, what was going on.
Well, please, just
But so let me
start.
just ask Connor,
The
and then I
soliloquy,
think
Ann,
it's
is too much.
quicker to
Go
do it from
with
Joe.
the question, please.
So you
Take it
mentioned
easy.
$200,000 condo, and you mentioned $1.5 million condo.
That's right.
I looked quickly, I didn't know this was coming, at the 5, comparables you had. And it sure looked to me as if some of them were, I guess I would say challenged neighborhoods. Tunnel Avenue, that's Route 9, right next to the entrance to the Holland Tunnel, the Harrison Street Path. I mean, that's a neighborhood that, it's coming along. And your other two were already high-rise, $1.5 million high-rise. Would you agree that it was very difficult for you to find a hotel with a whole bunch of buzz and excitement and event space, I'm quoting the transcript, and a well-established middle-class neighborhood?
That's a great point you make. I think all the different neighborhoods in Jersey City are what make this city a great place to live, and that the data kind of just shows that buyers don't care.
Well, but you didn't answer my question, because I was trying to be nice to you, and I was saying it was hard to find. I would say it's impossible to find, and that's why you didn't find it. And you have comparables in struggling neighborhoods that need some improvement, maybe $200,000 condos, I don't know. You have high rises where everybody is a huge glass tower. I didn't see, and I don't think it's your fault, a nice 4-story brownstone neighborhood with an event space, buzz, 120-foot tower in it. I don't see that. I just wanted to give you a chance to say,
Yeah, I mean,
use
this
a
is
word like
this
that.
is your if you have it back up on the screen, this is your price range, right? You have 200,000, you have a paired sale that's facing and not facing, then you go to 1.2 to 1.5 to 500,000 to 600,000. That is literally every household income and buyer you can think of in New Jersey, right? It covers the whole gamut.
So do you think some of your
I don't
comps were
think-
in stable neighborhoods like the neighborhood that we're talking about here? And I maybe
Ev-
just missed it because I was just quickly
every
looking through.
neighborhood in Jersey City has had great increases in value to their property, and I think that if you're just trying to cherry pick different neighborhoods, I don't think it's realistic.
I think he's answered my question. Thank you very much, guys. I would like to put Joe Jr. on for a minute if you have anything else to say. If you don't,
Like a runaway train.
I'm trying to go quick. I know we have a.
We could always go, yeah, we could always go next time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we're coming back another day, what I'd like to do is give my witnesses a chance to look at the material. then.
Okay.
Where are we now?
No,
I-
we're gonna do that.
I would have Mr. Morello who address some noise, and then Mr. Secker.
Well, I guess, and then we could finish you tonight. I
Okay.
assume.
Overnight?
Yeah. Looks that way.
We're getting breakfast tomorrow.
You want on here? You want the laptop?
I'm not gonna.
Thank you, board. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Mr. Morella, do you swear that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your full name, spell your last name.
My name is Matthew Murello, Murello.
And Ms. Morello, for the benefit of the board, can you give your experience and expertise?
Certainly. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering with an emphasis in acoustics from the University of Hartford. I'm a licensed professional engineer in good standing in New Jersey and 9 other states. I have provided expert witness testimony in acoustics and noise control on over 200 applications. I've been admitted as an expert in the New Jersey and New York courts. I could keep going if I really want to bore you, but
So I'm offering Ms. Morello as an expert in acoustics, as an engineer and an expert in acoustics.
thank you.
Thank you. So, Ms. Morello, you're, for the benefit of the board and the people here tonight, you're a member or a principal in Good Friends?
Sorry, yes, the name of the firm is Lewis Goodfriend and Associates in Chester, New Jersey. Yes.
So if the board remembers that in an earlier hearing, Mr. Cretella referred to a good friend. And And
That's
it
me.
was, yeah, so it was like, well, is it a good friend or is that's actually a company, right? So here is Mr. Morello from Good Friend. He is the one who has worked with Mr. Cretella on numerous projects to address sound attenuation and acoustic issues. So he's here. There's been some discussion about concerns about noise. So I'd like you to address that for the board.
Certainly. As the board is aware, and I will be brief, I did not issue a report and I don't have any pictures to put up. So what we did do is two things. We looked at, not only as the city is aware of, the city and the state of New Jersey both have noise regulations. They are comparable in what their limits are. And the limits are determined on two things. One is the hour of the day. So you have daytime and nighttime, and that cutoff is 10 p.m. So from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. is the daytime, and you flip that, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. is the nighttime. The other thing that matters is what is the receiving property use. So in this case, if we're looking at the worst case scenario with reference to noise, we have a residential receiving property line and any noise that occurs after 10 p.m. And that limit is 50 dBA. That can be assessed at any real property line. So it could be assessed on the balcony of an adjacent property, on the rooftop, or it could be assessed at ground level. So in order to address that, we looked at this potential application. Now there is, because of, as has been great testimony to already, there's no mechanical HVAC equipment on the roof. So there's really no issue as far as mechanical equipment producing noise at any of the adjacent buildings. All ground equipment, HVAC equipment and other things in dumpsters, they will either be designed so that they will meet the applicable limits of the noise regulation, or screened, so therefore that they will not exceed the noise regulation in any way, shape, or form. Now, the noise regulation has a lot of exceptions to them, and I'm not going to go through all 14 or 16 of them, but there are two that are very important to bring out. The first of which is the unamplified human voice. So, if you have a neighbor on a patio or at a pool terrace, and there's no amplified, no me talking into a microphone, that sound of someone talking, even if it's relatively loud, is not subject to the limits of the noise regulation. And the reason for that is if you have any type of gatherings, sports, festivals, things like that, where people can just make a lot of noise, it's not subject to the code. The other thing that is not subject to the code that's relevant here is any type of vehicle on a public right-of-way. And we've had some testimony as far as deliveries and trash and things that will take place on the public right-of-way. So those type of things would also not be subject to the noise regulation. There are others, but I'm not going to go through them with you. So if we look at the mechanical equipment, we will design it so that they will meet the nighttime limits of the code. And there has been some discussion as far as the rooftop amenity space of that's being proposed. Now, the rooftop amenity space, and I don't have a site plan, you've all seen it, you have it in front of you. The only outdoor area is facing east. It doesn't face the neighboring property lines. So there won't be any outdoor activities from that amenity space that will be directly facing the neighboring residential property lines. The other is the penthouse unit, which does have an outdoor patio, but that penthouse space is not designed, as in my understanding, to be an amenity space. It's a rental unit. So if someone wants to rent that unit or purchase that unit and go out on their patio, it would be just as if a neighbor had a neighboring voice on one side or the other. So I don't anticipate that anything is going to, from our property, is going to exceed any of the noise regulations from either the city or the state. One other thing that we did do is, because one of the questions we often get is, well, how loud is 50 dBA? Well, what I can tell you is we actually went out to the site. We have just recently been brought into this project. So we did measurements on February 10th. We visited on where the parking lot is to the existing, or where the bank used to be. And we made a measurement for about 30 minutes. And as you can imagine, most of the noise is traffic related. Because it's winter, you don't have any air conditioning units, which you would have in the summertime, and these sound levels would be slightly higher. But the sound levels range from about 53 dBA to 67 dBA at the ground level during the daytime hours. And then the daytime limit of the regulation is 65 dBA. So the existing sounds at street level are comparable to what the city and the state's code are. My engineer returned to the site at 10 o'clock at night, repeated the same measurement, 30 minutes, same location, and those sound levels range from about 48 dBA to 60 dBA, about 10 decibels above the 50 dBA code. And why that's important is while we're going to do everything we can so every piece of mechanical equipment that's going to go in and around this property will meet 50 dBA, if the nighttime sound level in February ranges between 48 to 60 dBA, if we introduce a sound of 50 dBA or lower, which is what we're committing to do, you're not going to hear that. It's going to be washed out in just the city noise in the block. And that's a very brief summary of the, I'd be happy to answer any questions and specifics. None?
Yes, I do.
Ah.
Very quickly. So I know you're an acoustic engineer.
And that way I'm going to give you a microphone. Get the joke?
Awesome. Thank you very much. I don't even know if it's on. You're an acoustic engineer. Can you say that sound waves are sometimes additive and sometimes cancel each other out? Like ripples on a pond.
All sound is additive except when one noise outweighs the other.
Okay.
Do
all
they
sound is
cancel?
additive.
No.
Unamplified human voice. Boy, I didn't realize this. You say you're going to comply with regulations, but unamplified human voice of a large crowd isn't subject to the regulations. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is my testimony.
So if there's a big crowd and they're all making noise, but there's no amplifier on their voices, that's just tough noogies for the neighbors, right?
Your words, not mine. But I will say that there is no space where you could have a large crowd that would be directly adjacent to your neighbor, to your property, your client's property, because the amenity space, other than the pool, which will be closed before 10 p.m., I would imagine, the outdoor patio is on the opposite side of the building, which will be shielded by the actual space itself.
Would it shield as many human voices, additive human voices, if there was a party with 125 people there? Can you testify that it would be shielded from our site? Because you've just said that we can't call the cops on you because it's exempt.
Two things that you just stated that I did not say. One is I did not say you couldn't call the cops, because you could. You could always call for any noise violation or any.
But it's not a violation.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Second, I don't think you could put 125 people, in your words, on their patio.
Okay, I got that from the transcript. So I actually don't have anything more for you at this time. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you for indulging me. I apologize. Just Mr. Sackler, just to address the comments. He's the traffic engineer and the planner to address the comments that were made earlier. And then we're done.
Yeah, yes, but we've got to finish this first. Okay.
Do you swear that the testimony you will provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Seckler.
And Mr. Sackler, you were here earlier while Mr. Simoff testified and when Mr. Steck testified, correct?
Correct.
And you've been qualified as an expert in traffic engineering and planning at the prior meetings, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So could you give us the benefit of your thoughts on some of the comments they made, or at least try to correct them for the record?
Absolutely. I'll start with some of the traffic comments. I just want to put on the record that everything related to Maxwell Place, the raising of the roadway, any bollards, yes, no, where they're located, the radii, design of the traffic signal and sidewalk was all based on comments by the city's either planning or engineering division. None of that started from our office. We were basically told, how about you make the radii X? So we drew that on the plan, and we provided the city with all of those documents. And as far as I believe, we've addressed all outstanding city engineering and planning comments as it relates to the transportation areas around the building. Again, if the city wishes to make any changes, not have a raised Maxwell, change the radii so the bus could turn easier, we have no problem doing that. We were just following guidance that was provided to us at this time. So again, any of the concerns related that were raised by the traffic engineer about kind of circulation in and around the building, that was all really brought to us and was requested of us to put on the plan.
And that's consistent with typical review agent comment letters that you're required to work with the review agents post-approval on any approval, right?
Correct. And again, I think all of those have the general idea of improving the pedestrian scale and the pedestrian experience. But again, we'd be happy to make whatever changes city engineering wants or city planning wants to the infrastructure around the building. I guess next, this kind of goes to both planning and traffic. I just want to state on the record, and this was also within the planning memo that the city provided, that we do not believe that any parking is required on site. Per ordinance 345-46 F7, the ordinance states no on-site parking is required for additions on structures or for adaptive reuse or change of use of existing buildings. So again, we believe that no parking is required. We are providing parking. We think that is useful on the site. That said, both ourselves and I believe city planning staff agrees that there's none required. So we do not believe there's a variance. I know Mr. Steck had made allusions that parking could be required here based on his interpretation, but as mine and obviously city staff, that no parking is required and no parking is necessary. Again, we are providing parking. We think it is a useful amenity for the site, but again, we do anticipate the vast majority of people using the site would be coming via walking, biking, potentially by the bus or in the surrounding community. So again, we believe this site fits well within the location being at the end of a walking or pedestrian only area, but we do have those parking spaces in case people do drive to the site. Next, I will talk to Mr. Steck did make mention of the fact that there's no guidance within planning documents regarding a building of close to this size. I believe he also made mention, and I think he alluded to the fact that this was talked about being a small scale neighborhood center, but within the master plan in, I believe it's chapter 4, it discusses neighborhood centers and talks about medium scale and has identified the following locations as medium-scale neighborhood centers. It would be area around the MLK light rail station, the Junction, Newark Avenue, which would be the area where our site's located, and Five Corners are medium-scale. Medium-scale uses and development density per the planning documents is mixed-use core surrounded by medium density up to 8 stories residential developments, has surrounding population of 50 to 150 persons per acre, and it says that new and planned developments that can increase the area's population and impact the scale of the core is what is recommended as part of medium-scale neighborhood centers. I recognize the zoning here is not 8 stories, but there is planning documents that speak to the Newark Avenue corridor having this higher level heights and higher level intensity within these planning documents. I believe the master plan document came after the NC zoning that has been established along this corridor. So it's possible that there'll be future changes to this, but I would state there is planning documents that look to higher level densities, higher level heights than the 5 stories that we're in, but we are seeking a height variance absolutely for this application. Going to the height variance, I would speak that this site, and I think even Mr. Steck spoke to the fact that this is, I think, the second largest lot. I indicated it was the second largest lot. If you walk from Newark from the path, basically all the way to our site, or if you include the Saffron, that would be the largest one. We'd be the largest until you reach that site. So I do believe this is a unique site. I think that's important because of the use that we're seeking. A hotel is, and this was my testimony earlier, is not a use you could consider on lots that are 2,500 square feet, which is what the minimum lot size is in a vast majority of the lots that you would walk along Newark Avenue. So why would the zoning ordinance allow for a hotel when the lots are so small? Our lot being unique and being, considerably larger than the minimum, and again, the second largest in this whole corridor, again, is a reason why this is uniquely suited to support this type of use, specifically this type of use. And again, we did talk about the location of the site being at the end of the pedestrian corridor, being a focal point, helping bring people all the way into the area at the end of this business corridor along Newark Avenue, I think is important. And lastly, the building itself. This is a site that we're looking to maintain the building on the property. Now, I know Mr. Steck did not indicate or believe that this site has any type of historical significance at all. And again, I am not a historical expert, but I do believe there was a letter from Maggie O'Neill who's the Principal Historic Preservation Specialist, and it was addressed to the board dated February 27, 2025. I believe it was submitted for the record, but just I want to indicate that I believe it's the first sentence states, 201 Newark Avenue has been determined by HPC staff to retain historic, architectural, and cultural significance under criteria A and C. So again, I'm not a historical specialist, but she seems to indicate that we meet conditions A and C.
You gave today's date. Is that accurate?
I believe that was states, that might actually not be accurate. I believe there's a...
Chuck, it's accurate.
It is accurate?
Yeah, I updated it today and it auto-updated.
Gotcha. Okay. I know I checked the link and it did say today's date. It also states that it acknowledges the proposed plans of the building do alter the building, but does not create an adverse effect to the building or its integrity. And I looked at purpose A, or criteria A, means that it's associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of our history. And criteria C is it embodies distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction. So again, I'm not a historical specialist, but it's clear that there is staff that has made this or considered this historical. Also in the Phase 1 Historic Site Survey of the City of Jersey City in 1985, listed this as a contributing building to the Lower Newark Avenue Historic District. So again, I do believe that this does meet the purposes of the MLU as it relates to maintaining historic structures. I do also think that the fact that we are maintaining this and keeping this building does add to positive criteria, but also makes this a unique site. This makes it a particular unique site because we have this fairly historic building. And I know that I'm not the architect, but I do believe we are maintaining a lot more of the facade than a single window. I believe a couple windows are being modified so that they could be utilized as, kind of like a door pass-through area, but the existing entrance area, the facade itself, the windows themselves, again, although they're not being maintained 100%, I believe 2 of them are being maintained as is, and the other ones are being modified, but keeping the look of the historic building, which again, I think is something that's been requested of the applicant by city planning, and we are looking to comply with that as well. So again, just kind of reiterating our positions, we do believe this site is uniquely suited. We do believe this is a site that does meet the purposes of zoning as it relates to maintaining historic properties. We do believe that no parking variance is necessary as part of this application. And again, as I stated earlier regarding the traffic engineering, all the external design as it relates to the transportation patterns for pedestrians or vehicles or buses were all based on city planning and city engineering directives.
Matt, just one more issue or question, if you could address. There's been a lot of talk about the views and the view from the rooftop amenity area, which, depending on whether it's going to be an as-of-right building or the proposed building, there will be an obstruction of that view, correct?
Correct. There are no windows specifically on the Saffron building that face our property. There are kind of courtyard units that some have windows or little balconies, but all of those are within those 5 stories. If we build an as-of-right building 5 stories on our property, if you walked out any of those balconies, all you'd see was our building anyway. So again,
So regardless of what you build here, a project on this property will not block any views from any of the units within the Saffron. Is that correct?
any individual unit of the building is no more impacted as it relates to its view from our proposed building versus any as-of-right building that could be constructed here.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question, yeah.
And do you want to cross-examine this?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Commissioner, can I ask him to address the one thing? You had a question about Maxwell Street and backing out. I think that was a little bit of confusing, and I want Matt to address how that's going to work, because it's not going to work the way I believe the other experts said.
Or some people may be interpreting it. The backing out is no different than if you were backing out of a single-family driveway onto a street. You're just backing to get your car into the street, and then you will pull forward down Maxwell. What we indicated is that obviously backing out of a garage position, you may have limited sight distance. So what we are proposing is, since the garage is always has staff, that staff would basically just kind of help as if you were, if I'm renting a U-Haul and I'm having someone kind of back me into a spot, you wave them in, make sure that they have clearance, and then they would pull forward. But people are not backing their car or vehicle down Maxwell. They're just backing out of the garage, and then they will pull forward out of the street.
You would go forward towards Maxwell, towards Cold Street.
Correct. You go forward towards Coles. It's just backing as if you were coming out of a private driveway in a residential community. You got to back yourself out and pull forward.
But you won't be backing up all the way up to Jersey Avenue.
No. You would back, till the vehicle clears its front. The front bumper's
Okay,
clear.
all right.
And then you turn the wheel left and you pull out forward.
Yeah, because I had this idea it was going to go all the way up Jersey Avenue, and it will, probably hit a pedestrian that's crossing.
100%. Yeah, and that's why when we were saying
That's why I envision.
we're backing onto Maxwell, we're not backing down Maxwell. I
Down,
think that's
okay.
the difference.
Okay, great. Can I continue? I have another question. The last time you spoke about the traffic survey that you did it in June, you said. I wanted to find out that you also do it in September and October, because that's when the school starts. And I know that I lived in Jersey City all my life, so I know traffic triples when schools are out, especially in the morning, at 3 o'clock. So did you do a study then?
So we did, again, our counts were June 6th and 7th. So school was in session. And in fact, from my experience, when you get nice June weather, you got kids, you got adults, you got everyone out in the street. So our counts were when school was in session in June.
Okay.
So while it wasn't in September, it was nice days and people walking around.
Can I ask what time you conducted these studies?
7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 7 in the evening on the 6th and the 7th.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. I don't know if it came up. The bus stop is on Newark Avenue, right in front of the place. Was
Yes.
there talk of maybe, or what do you think, if the bus stop was moved around to the Jersey Avenue side of the building? Because already you have the fire hydrant there. Keeping it from that Maxwell Street walkway, there'll be no cars and no obstructions, so people could see whatever they need to see walking on that street. Would that be something beneficial to consider?
Obviously, I'd want to make sure that it works from a city engineering and planning point of view.
Just
I think
curious.
one of the benefits that we had was that I believe we were creating a slight indent. We definitely can move to that location.
Curious if that would actually be
Yeah,
better. I'm just throwing it at you
you're
because
right.
it alleviates that corner and those turns on Newark, and it puts it,
There's a
and the light, you're not waiting for the light to change while the bus is still sitting there picking people
Because you
up.
have two buses, right, right
Well, the
near
one
each
just
other.
makes
Yeah,
that turn
one
on
one
Jersey like
side
it
and
always
one on the
does
other.
and stops right there.
Exactly. The balance usually is whether you want your bus before the light or after the light. Typically, you want it after so that when the bus is then loaded, it could go. The only thing I would need to ensure, obviously the city engineer would want to make sure, is when the bus makes the turn, it doesn't quite easily get lined up against the curb immediately. It's got to swing.
And then pull in at the end.
It's got, yeah.
It is further down at the end anyway, so that's why I think it could do it. But
It'll
that's
end
why
up
I'm
being
asking
closer
that.
to Maxwell by
Yes,
the time it
and
gets
there's a
fully
fire
lined
hydrant
up.
there. Yep.
Yeah.
So it made the turn and it's out of everyone's way.
Yeah,
So that was just a thought. The other one's kind of crazier, but it had to do with the valet parking. I was just curious. Obviously, you come in on the Newark Avenue side to have your car valet parked, right? That's correct. You drop off on Newark Avenue at the entrance.
Yeah, there's a.
And then someone drives it around to the back and puts it away. You know, like they have in down Atlantic City in the casinos, you drop your car off in the front, but you pick it up in a different location, so it's like right on the driver. Is there any way like you could pick your car up when you're leaving the premises? The valet is actually in the back and exit, so you don't have to go all the way down, around, and up Cole Street, as someone mentioned before. I was just curious because it's one car at a time, it sounds like, and because of the mechanism you guys have there anyway.
Yeah, it's not a bad thought. I obviously, from an operations point of view, the valet person would have to get the car ready, get lined up and get it ready.
But
and
it'd
have
be
to
right
be
there
in
in the
garage.
back and off
We
they
don't want
go
it
from
waiting.
Maxwell Street instead of going all the way around the block and coming back to the front. Dropping off in the front, I sort of understand.
Right.
But exiting, you're exiting. And I was just curious if that was
We've got no problem with that. And
I
again,
was just curious if that was even doable.
it is, and we would make it a condition that the pickup would have to occur inside the garage. What we don't want is that
To
on
leave.
Maxwell, a car waiting on Maxwell and loading up and then blocking that. that
Yeah, I
road.
mean,
So
you
we-
guys will have to regulate that. But I think it'll be easier than sending cars 3 blocks around and back up Newark Avenue to get in the front on exiting.
And nowadays, a lot of this valet is done. You get an app or a link, and you basically say, "I want my car in 10 minutes." And,
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. When they turn on Maxwell, the trucks, to make their deliveries, et cetera, there is, from the photos that I'm looking at, the pictures, there's a fire hydrant and a tree. Now, they're talking about a wide swing to make it into Maxwell Street off of Jersey Avenue there. Is that going to be difficult with the fire hydrant there? Is that fire hydrant remaining? Is that tree coming down? How are we, what's in the plans for that?
So the fire hydrant, I would need to look more at. I believe it may need to be relocated, and it might just be need to relocate it just because for ease of use, just get it moved out of the way. Trees, I know that we do have a series of trees along our frontage. I believe we have 4 tree pits that are proposed along our frontage. I believe they are all outside of the turning radius that any vehicle would make. So I don't have an issue with the tree. The hydrant probably makes sense if we can move it to slide it over so it's not right at the curb.
And has there been any discussion about the lights, the poles that they were talking about before that were out of the sight of a person coming in a particular direction, which would help guide them down the street, around the street?
You're referring to on Maxwell Street?
No, it was
The corner
no,
of
right
Newark.
on the corner
traffic light?
of Newark
Traffic
and Jersey.
Yeah, so let me explain. So we are widening the sidewalk. The traffic signals as it relates to vehicular traffic, the pole is going to stay in the same spot and the arm is in the same spot. What you're looking at when you're driving, you're looking at the red, yellow, green indication over the roadway. That's still going to be over the roadway. It's not going to change the location at all. That's what you're going to see. The item that you'd be looking off the road for would be the walk and don't walk signs that a pedestrian, they would still be looking straight ahead and seeing it. It's just instead of being right at the curb, it's going to be a little further back. However, if the city wishes us to relocate that pedestrian pole, we can move that closer to the curb if that's what city engineering wants. But the signal that manages the traffic, that's located in the perfect position because, again, no one's looking at where the pole is located. Everyone's looking at where the red, yellow, green is located. That's not moving.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. You mentioned this again about the extension of the sidewalk. Why are you extending the sidewalk? Isn't that big enough?
It was requested by, I don't know if it was city engineering or planning, because it's such a highly pedestrian area. It allows for more pedestrians to wait in the corner, and it makes the crossing shorter. So the people that are waiting to cross to go towards the Newark pedestrian area, they have a shorter path with the wider sidewalk to cross the street. So they're not in the street as long when they want to cross the street.
Well, won't that
It's
impede,
like a bump out.
Won't that impede the traffic then that we're talking about? As far as going back and forth, the traffic will then get worse.
So again, there's the trade-off is that in one hand, and again, this is one of the Vision Zero initiatives, is that with that type of curbing and that type of design, you don't have people taking the turn as fast. So people could see pedestrians. It's safer for pedestrians having the radii the way that the city engineering wants to see it, because the vehicles making right turns, they're going slower, and the pedestrians have less crossing distance. That said, with any positive thing for pedestrians, usually it's a negative thing for vehicles. So it's a little less throughput for the cars. The cars are going slower. They may get less cars through the traffic light at a time. So it's the trade-off. And again,
just doesn't make sense.
I don't want to play in the middle. I'm not the judge. Whatever city engineering wants, that's what we typically follow. I don't want to put one over the other. I let city staff decide.
That doesn't make sense, but it's okay.
Okay.
I just have one more quick thing. And as far as deliveries go, I mean, it's always a kind of a pet peeve growing up here in Jersey City and seeing it everywhere. But I would think when it comes to not just Maxwell Street, but Maxwell Street, when it comes to deliveries and everything else, that this would just be totally coordinated in a way that deliveries come at certain times. I mean, not having deliveries during rush hour while kids are going to school, and that really becomes a bigger problem. And then even people leaving with their cars all on that same street, delivery. That really is where everything comes in, scheduling and making sure that those things are coordinated very well.
And again, with this type of user where you're going to have, let's say, regular linens delivery, and you're going to have you can get on regular times versus when you're, a small deli and you're getting the delivery whenever the truck shows up for soda, this is going to be coordinated. And again, in urban environments, you typically have restrictions. If you're in Hoboken, it might be there at 6 o'clock in the morning because that's the only time Washington Street is open. Here, we could coordinate, especially those regular deliveries.
Okay. I think, Ann, you have to.
I just have two questions. So one is, you said you addressed the various planning department physical changes twice, the beginning and kind of at the end, and you said you'll go back if you guys are convinced that Ben says, oh, this isn't so good, you'll go back. My question is, do you have an opinion? Was the existing what you proposed better than what the city was asking you to do, or was what the city was asking you to do at least better than what you were originally proposing?
I'm not going to disagree with city staff since they're the reviewers here. I do believe that this is an area where I would promote pedestrian safety because of the amount of pedestrians in this area. So I do agree with the city's decision to increase the radii at the intersection. In terms of Maxwell, I really don't have any opinion on whether it should be raised or not. I think it's fine the way it is, but I understand the city's thought on potentially raising the grade of Maxwell.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Simoff to look at the existing pre-city conditions because I think they may be worse in terms of what he's looking at. You mentioned the historicity of the bank. But my understanding is that you are not saying that this building is necessary to preserve the bank.
Correct, and I don't believe that's the position of the HPC either. I was just indicating that I do believe that this is a site that can meet the purposes of planning as it relates to a historical site and how we're,
Because you are saving it, that's one of the purposes
Yes,
of planning.
yes.
Great, thank you very much.
That's it.
Where are we now?
We're done with our rebuttal.
Okay. All right. Do you have? Okay. At this point of time.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? I just want to ask one question. No, I'm not. Well, I was just wondering. Are you going to come back with the architect next time we meet, or when? Because there was a question with the architectural plan that I wanted to ask, and I'm just wondering, will he return, or is this one shot? Because I remember last time he didn't come in.
I think the board still has that point in the application
Yes,
where you
yes,
get to ask
right.
questions of anybody.
Okay. We do have. I mean, I have a few other questions, but
Yes.
at protocol, we normally have the community come up and make statements, and then we ask questions of everyone, and then we have the city planner. Can I just get an idea of how many people are here to speak, for or against?
About 15 left.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah, she didn't get enough, but sure. If you have a question for the witness, certainly.
Yes.
Come on up. No, why don't
We
you
have
come
to-
up? I'm hard of hearing.
And if there's a question for a witness,
Wait,
am I
just-
still
wait, wait a second.
to have my 2 minutes at a separate time?
Yes.
yes.
Do you swear that the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. State your full name, please. Eliza Fry, F-R-E-Y. I rent at 200 Christopher Columbus, so on the same block.
And who do you have a question for?
I have a question for the planner who was just up, yeah. I just wanted to ask, what is the considerations of the size of the truck that we mentioned exiting onto Coles? I know we talk about turning in, but that's where I park my car sometimes, right at the end of Coles. That's a one-way, very tight street. I do not see a large truck on a very congested street being able to make that 90-degree left turn without hitting cars.
Right. So, in terms of the size of the truck, and I just want to put on the record, it's an SU30, which is basically a 30-foot truck. So, it is a little bit larger than, let's say, Amazon, UPS, but it's not a tractor trailer. It's not a separate trailer. Yeah, it's like a small moving truck. So it's
And I know because I moved in and the truck couldn't move in there. We had to move in on the street.
you were turning from Maxwell onto Coles, or you were turning from Coles onto some.
Not able to move in on Maxwell Alley because of the tight turn on Coles. So
The
it
left
had to
turn.
be, parked on Coles itself.
Okay, we would have to take. I'd have to take a look to see that turn being made. We only looked at the turning into Maxwell, but we definitely could look at usually just so you know, the left turns are usually easier to make than right turns, which is why the right turn on Maxwell was what I deemed to be critical. But we could take a look at the left turn on
I just wanted
Coles.
to note that that's also, is this the same time I could make a 2-minute testimony, or is that a separate day?
Well, we're going to hold our comments because I think we have to come back. We have a lot of people that left and we want to make comments, so.
I want to make sure I still have a.
Yes, you will. Yes, because that was a question. Okay, so normally we would have the public come up, and I know that so many people left, so we're going to have to come back, and I believe we have other questions. I know I have some other questions. But at this time, I think we need to have Maggie, our city planner, because I don't think Maggie will be making it when we come back, and you'll see why.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys being willing to take this out of order. I am not going to make it to the next meeting, so I'd like to finish one board project. All right, so I am the Principal Historic Preservation Specialist for the city. I did want to put some testimony on the record tonight concerning the historic status of this building, as well as our staff review of the proposed project. As was referenced in the planner's testimony, I did prepare a memo for the board's review this evening. It has been uploaded to the portal. Part of the reason why I'm here is that I made some light editing to that memo today, which is why the date has been updated today, and that's also why I'm here to put it on the record, because you did not receive it with advance notice of the meeting. 201 Newark Avenue is the former Trust Company of New Jersey building. It was constructed in 1928, and it is considered to be in a Spanish Renaissance style. This building is identified in the Phase 1 Historic Resource Survey for Jersey City. This building is a contributing building to the Lower Newark Ave Historic District, which is not a designated district. It is an eligible district. It was found to be eligible at the local level as part of that Phase 1 survey, and the New Jersey Historic Preservation Office found that historic district to be eligible at the state level in 1990. This building is not designated, however, we do categorize it as a historic resource. Historic resource is defined in our land development ordinance, but it is essentially a building that retains historic architectural or cultural significance as defined by our ordinances. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath for obvious reasons. In the Phase 1 Historic Resource Inventory, there is a brief description of the building. We have reviewed that description of the building done in 1984. Comparatively to today, there is very little alteration to the building. It retains a large amount of historic integrity. If the Lower Newark Ave Historic District were to be designated, we have no plans to do that, by the way, but if it were going to be designated, we would likely assess that this building would be considered a key contributing building to that historic district due to that high level of integrity. That being said, the plans that are proposed for this building, we do find meet the standards for positive criteria for historic preservation. The applicant is proposing a substantial rehabilitation of the building, and I disagree with the testimony this evening that they're only saving one window. We spent a significant amount of time as staff working with the applicant to preserve as many features on this building as physically possible. Part of the reason it may seem like only one window is staying intact is because they are making alterations to other windows, and we wanted to leave one window completely intact so that it could be considered reversible and meet the Secretary of the Interior standards. Other than that, the applicant is preserving the entire facade of the building. They are making minimal alterations in terms of removals to incorporate it into the new construction aspect of the project. I know this board sees quite a few preservation-related projects outside of designated districts like this, and you guys are used to seeing more of a facade-ectomy style, where they're keeping just a couple feet of a facade or 10 feet of a facade or something. The applicant is not proposing to do that here. They are keeping a significant portion of the building. And that has come as many years of working with the applicant trying to get it to the point where we are keeping large portions of the building. So we do think that the building meets positive criteria for historic preservation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Okay. That being said, if you guys don't have questions on the historic aspect of it, when you do get around to voting on this project, there are recommended conditions that if the board is inclined to approve the project, and I'm not making a recommendation on the project itself, I'm simply stating that it meets historic preservation criteria. But if you do approve the project, there are recommended conditions that are in my memo. You guys have adopted conditions like this in the past. I do just want to point out there are 5 conditions. They are standard conditions. They are things that you guys have seen in the past for historic preservation projects. I do just want to specifically point out condition number 4, which is HPC staff shall review and sign both the signature plans and the construction documents prior to permitting to confirm conformance with the approved plans and shall be provided physical material samples for their review and approval. We do acknowledge, usually HPC has a higher standard of plan that we see. My board typically gets construction documents. This condition is to reflect, to make sure that what you guys are seeing here, when they progress to that phase of plan, it matches this, and that we are actually approving all of the preservation that is being proposed to happen. So again, that is part of this memo, that when you get to a vote, if this is something you would approve, I would ask that you guys adopt these conditions as part of a resolution.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think at this time, we would have to reschedule to come back to give everyone the opportunity to speak, to listen to what people have to say, and then ask questions that we may have based on the comments from the public and other questions that I may have and other people may have. And then we would vote.
And then we'll vote.
Then we would vote. But
Our next meeting is March 6th, Thursday, next Thursday.
Let's get it done.
Come back next Thursday, March 6th.
no experts. We're done with all of that. We'd just be public comment. We would need the experts here to ask questions.
The March 6th,
but there would be no other
the
presentation.
March 6th agenda's already been published already. That one already has items ready to go. So this one, we'll have to just communicate with the applicant, the opposing attorney,
Okay.
to kind of determine what would be a more suitable date, because that one is just not available.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just throwing something out there, maybe list it on March 6th to carry it, and then in the meantime, we can, maybe between now and March 6th, we can accommodate another special meeting date.
Yeah, I mean, that would be something we would have to discuss.
Right, I don't know, it's a quick turnaround to get a date among all of us, but
Well, it's really just trying to compete for the room.
Yes.
So it's kind of that's kind of what led to this date, and so it's a little bit more difficult sometimes because there are other meetings that need to be conducted here. So I'll
Understood.
just have to communicate with them
Okay.
and communicate with our staff to see what would be a more suitable date.
But for the moment, we'll put it on for March 6th.
Okay.
This is a holding date. and
Okay.
Everybody will know it's on March 6th.
Yes.
That they can look on the portal and it'll say it's adjourned to
Right.
Okay.
a date,
Yes.
the date that we all know about.
And just a reminder that the meeting will start at 6 o'clock, starting in March. All the meetings will be at 6 o'clock.
Oh, thanks, I did not know.
You didn't know that? Okay.
It was because of me, Chuck. I want to get to bed early.
Okay, thank you for your time. Okay.
Oh,
Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
We
do.
got resolutions.
Yeah, we do. Okay, at this time, we have some resolutions that we need to memorialize. Do not get up yet.
I want to make sure they bring
Let me
back
just,
that article.
just see what we have here.
That's what I want to make sure.
He said he was. We asked him, he said yes.
He said yes?
Yes, you said that.
Okay, because I need that man there. I want to see that picture.
Hold on one second.
Okay.
I'd rather stay in.
Okay, ready, Iris?
And finish this damn.
Okay.
Okay, so the first two resolutions we have to memorialize. The first is case Z 2024-0007. Timothy Karcher and Roberta Karcher. The address was 659 Jersey Avenue. That was approval for a C variance. That was heard on December 12th. Present on December 12th was Acting Chair Arroyo and Commissioners Burns, Barron, Shadid, Boyle, and Zablicki. That application passed 6 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
Aye.
The next one was also on December 6th. Same 6 commissioners, same 6 votes, 6 in favor, none opposed. This case was Z 22-021. The applicant was 445 Jersey Avenue, SPE LLC. The address was 443-447 Jersey Avenue. That was an application for a preliminary and major final site plan with C and D variances. And as I said, that passed 6 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
And the next two occurred on February 6th. Present February 6th was Chairwoman Coyle, Commissioners Arroyo, Shadid, Allen, Burns, and Barron. The first case was Sarah Lauter. That case was Z 2024-0023. That the address was 311 Varick Street. That was a C variance for rear yard stair encroachment. That passed 6 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of
Aye.
memorializing that?
Aye.
And same thing for the next case. Again, February 6th, same commissioners. This is case Z 2024-0062. The applicant was 3487 Kennedy Boulevard, Inc. It was a D use variance. I'm sorry. The address was 3489 Kennedy Boulevard. Again, that passed 6 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
Okay, and then get
That's
a
it.
motion.
At
to
this
adjourn.
time, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye. 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 Aye.